Hello. This is for horses and this is for unicorns.
I
feel like I'm in a submarine. I was saying in that moment, like that's the human aspect of it is like sometimes I'm in like the flow state. Like I'm just literally a conduit and I feel, people always go like, what is it like? And I say like, there's these three elements. There's like me doing it. Then there's me like watching me do it.
Totally.
And be like, where am I going? Like I'm going like, what was that suggestion? What rhymes with that? How do I get there while this guy's doing this? It's, you know, shouts to Sneaky D's. Like we did a night called What's Poppin' for 11 years.
Welcome to Discipline Stoners, the gateway drug to mindfulness.
To think that we started this podcast to fight a stigma, only to uncover so much love that we realized that you can't put your energy anywhere but what you want.
Look deeper. Feel more. Tune in.
So much love. The Discipline Stoners.
We're not here to distract ourselves.
The gateway drug to mindfulness.
We're here to learn. We're here to grow.
And welcome back to another episode of Discipline Stoners. I'm Ellevan.
My name is Winnie.
And we are the gateway drug to mindfulness. And today, I got to take this one. This is my brethren in rhyme from time. You've seen this guy outside in lines, spilling lines all the time, on the grind. He is your favorite late night Toronto socialite connoisseur of vibes. He's a freestyle rapper. He's a host. He's a DJ. He's been a musician in bands. He holds quite the tale, but really he's that man with that sweet coattail in the night fluffing off into his next adventure. Please put your joints up for your new friend, my brethren, Branko!
Thank you. What an intro.
Love, bro!
That's awesome.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Off the cuff.
Oh, no, I know. That's what we do.
That's
I
what we
appreciate it.
Okay.
How long have you guys known each other for?
It's my first year in Toronto. This angel came into my life. Years? I remember the night I met you. Do you remember?
Absolutely. It was at
Duffy's.
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 There's two of them.
On Dufferin and Bloor.
Yeah, our friend Julio was playing, who has since transitioned, which is awesome.
Yes.
And I guess he had met Ellevan separately, and me. He met at the supermarket open mic, and he had invited me to come freestyle. And so I was waiting, and as I'm waiting, like on a song, he calls up Evan, and Evan goes and like does his thing. And I was like, oh, cool. And then he called me up, and then we got off stage and was like, you do that? You do that? And it was like instant. Because we were also just such the same.
Cute.
Yeah, it was like bromance right away. And we were such the same vibe.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting in the world that we're in, because I feel like we stick out a lot in the kind of hip-hop realm. And it's no slight on that, but there is definitely a lot of like super alpha energy and like different. And him and I are always like lighthearted and jokey and like fun.
We approach comedically because we're not afraid to sit in the moment, I think, with people. And it's kind of a glorious miracle. And I just want to say, like, being accepted by you with open arms in that moment, because what he forgot to mention is I was the new kid on the block. Like, you had been rocking in the city. And when I dreamed that moment, I had a toxic masculinity version of if I ever saw someone who did the exact same thing as me, that there would be this competition. But, like, as soon as we met, it was like, I love this guy. I love this guy. Like, and we became kind of partners in rhyme right there with like never forming a duo, but every show I do, I invite you. You know, there's an open stage and open mic with me, and I feel the same extension of warm energy from you. And our relationship has meant so much to me in my journey through being a musician, bro. So like, love you and thank you. And it's so nice to watch you rock.
No, I appreciate it, and same. It's been like just a joy. But yeah, I think that was a big part of it. I never kind of grew up in that. I was lucky that I kind of just started rhyming for fun at parties. You know, people are always like, oh, like, what did you listen to growing up? Because they think I'm a hip-hop head, and I wasn't. I was listening to, like, Korn and Limp Bizkit and Foo Fighters and Rage, and I just started...
That checks out.
Yeah, and I started almost, like, as a joke. And then friends at parties were like, oh, someone had a guitar, would beatbox, like, you should rhyme, or guys were outside, like, freestyling. And it was always, maybe you felt this, too, like, I'd be in that cypher and would be the guy sticking out, because they were all, you know, I got the gat, I'm strapped, I'll get your back. And I'm like, I have math class with you. Like, you don't do any of this stuff, you know? But it was not their fault, but they were a product of what they were listening to. They thought that's what hip hop was, as opposed to like, no, it's your story. These guys are saying that because that's what they've lived.
Yeah.
We touched
Usually.
on this. Yeah, that's like working from the synthetic imagination or the creative imagination. This came up in a previous conversation as well. It's like your approach was playful, fun, and creative, and it just like felt better. Like to your point, like in the cypher, and everyone was trying to like dominate. It's like that whole joke of like, bitch, I don't sell crack, I smoke it. Like, I flip that shit out of there. Like, I don't care. Like, you're the tough guy. Like, I'm the silly clown. Like, there's so much more power in that. And what he's not also gushing on himself for, because he's also humble, is he did his freestyle rap that night on his head. Yes. So you usually go off the dome as we freestyle, off the dome. He did it on the dome. He'd spit off the dome on the dome. So he used to do this trick where he'd go up like this and like literally do a headstand on stage. Yeah. And then so it's like, okay, nice.
I actually do remember this.
My bro is doing acrobatics. So if I'm going to spit, I got so wild. Like, you were just another figure of like leveling up through creative expression. And I love that because rap wasn't, as you said, it wasn't your origin. It's also not your first place in music either, right? Like you actually play bass. A lot of rappers are like, oh, like I wish I could play an instrument. And it's like you actually came from playing bass in a band, right?
Yeah.
And playing guitar yourself and then into rap.
Yeah.
So you had this musicality leverage. Sorry to keep cutting you off.
No. It's all gravy. Like, and I think that was really a benefit. I was playing bass at that time in like a ska band. I wanted to play guitar. I met a guy and he was like, I play guitar, you should play bass and we'll start a band. And that literally turned into 2 bands over like 10 years over a 12-year span. It was crazy. And I got to tour like all over Canada and America and all this stuff that I never imagined. But I had like the musicality, which I think was cool because when I was getting into rhyming, I think I approached it from that kind of musicality of understanding like the instruments and how everything goes. And also being able to ask for like what I want, like when I'm on stage.
Yes.
Like being able to ask the musicians and understanding the dynamics. I could have used Winnie at that time, though, because when I was doing those headstands, I had to stop. I compressed a bunch of nerves in my back.
Oh, buddy.
So I was going to this open mic forever, and at some point I was like, how do I, like you said, like level up? Like, how do I change it up a bit? And one night I just kind of decided to do that. So I put a chair, and I used to, like, put the mic and go upside down. But I was using my arms for, like, balance, but not actually any weight.
You were putting it...
All the weight was on my neck, and I'd be like bouncing, and I'd be, don't worry about it. We'll edit that in post. And so I was just like kicking my legs and all this crazy stuff, but all the weight was on my neck.
Oh.
And there was a couple Mondays when I woke up and like, I could feel some pain, and that was a sign of my body being like, stop fucking doing this.
Or figure it out.
Yeah, and I didn't really listen in like a couple days, and it would go away, and I kept doing it till it got like really, really bad, till it was like pain, and like my arms were like sometimes going numb because all my muscles were seized up. And actually my sax player, one of my old sax players in the ska band, became an RMT.
Oh, shit.
And she was like, hey, if any friends, like I'm looking to get some hours in. And so I started going to her. Yvonne Moyer's her name. Now she plays.
Shout out.
Yeah, and now she plays in I think they're called Northern Horns. They're the horn band for the Arkells.
Oh, sick.
Oh, wow.
Is Ernesto in there too?
Ernesto's in
Ernie.
there. Shouts to Ernie, who's a good friend of ours. Oh, nice. Yeah, he's a wicked tattoo artist. So you got a piece of his.
Winnie has one too, matching.
Ernesto used to be in, I think it was Dead Penny Collective. With
Sam.
Sam
Yep.
Morton. So it's all interconnected.
We all know each other so deep. It's so cool.
Yeah, and Dennis plays sax in that. He used to be in a wicked live hip-hop band called Pocket Dwellers that were super, super cool. And either way, Yvonne's in that. But she fixed me. Like, I went to her, and she fixed me up. And anytime it came back, and then I went to acupuncture and all this stuff. So sometimes I see people, and they're like, oh, man, you didn't do the headstand. And that's how I know they haven't seen me in, like, 10 years.
Yeah.
Because I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing it when you did, because it meant that's what it signified to me. And when he was going to say, don't hurt yourself, but like the sacrifice like as we wander across this land of meeting musicians, and we just mentioned a mouthful of a bunch of really dope ones. It's like we're all trying to kind of dance for each other or entertain an audience, you know, bring it up another level. And when I saw that sort of commitment, and I always kind of want to ask you about that too, but you obviously clarified, yeah, it did fucking hurt. Because you made it look so effortless. But like, yeah, your investment to the craft, having fun with it, that's such a good energy and attitude to bring to life. And you bring into a room, I'm going to say like a permission for people to be themselves maybe more, because you obviously like dress so cool and like are like leading an alternative lifestyle, but you're like a kind-hearted, like real genuine person that just like leaves a good impression on people. It's so important in the world. Like, what's your thought on that sort of like energy work and like people living in their authentic self? How did you get to such a confident place that is also so peaceful?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of layers there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, even when I host shows, which you do as well, I kind of tell people, like, an MC is a master of ceremonies. Like, our job is to work with energy. And it's interesting when I do host shows because I come in, most people go, like, I've never seen an MC come in so chill. Like, they usually yell at me, you know, and they go, like, how are we doing? Like, not fucking good enough. And I always, you know, and I always joke. I go, like, that's so weird to me. Like, imagine you had a friend, like, if
It's so true, bro.
If I came to Winnie and was like, how are you doing? She's like, not great. And I'm like, not fucking good. Like, that's not a good friend.
Zone
you
in
know?
and be present, be their fucking friend, bro.
So,
Yeah.
and it's not that that energy isn't there, but it's like I feel like they're trying to pull, and I get it. They're like, oh, I'm an MC, I gotta hype the crowd, but I feel like they're trying to pull an energy that isn't there.
That isn't there, yeah.
You know, and this, I never went in with that mentality, but what I realized was it was the difference between talking to people and talking at people.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. And so I'm like, maybe you're not. And I say at my shows, I go, like, whether you're having the best day of your life or the worst day of your life or somewhere in the middle, like, you're welcome here. Just as you are, as is, like the IKEA section, you know? And I just, and so I try to meet people where they're at and then bring them up.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to be like, this is how you should feel.
Oh, that's so fucking spectacular and special.
And it's been cool because it resonates with some people. Like, some people come up and go, thank you. Like, I was having a really bad day. And, like, I felt seen and I felt safe and I felt welcome here. Because, especially in those scenarios in the shows we do in comedy, anything, like, it feels like a party. And when people look around and everyone's having a great time and they're not, like, they feel super isolated because they go like, oh, but I don't feel like that. And so that's an important thing, you know, in terms of like all the rest of this stuff. It was funny because you said, how did you become so confident? And I'm one of the most self-conscious and like self-deprecating people you'll ever meet.
Oh.
And that's what's funny.
People wouldn't know that about you, though.
No, and I talk to people, and that's been interesting too, because when you look like this, some people go like, wow, that's awesome.
You're a character. You're not a real person.
Yeah. And some people come up and we have conversations like this and they go, oh man, like, it was really nice to talk to you because, like, I always see you around and I kind of thought you were just like a fuckboy, like, party guy, like, you know, because
You are out here in amazing amounts.
Yeah, and I used to run a party in my underwear, and I was the guy dancing on the bar and stuff. Even after, like, I stopped drinking a long time ago, and I was still a sober guy. I just liked partying.
Sneaky D's, hip
But
hop
people
party.
would see me, and then they'd come up and be like, oh, and they'd, like, offer me drugs or something. I'm like, and they're like, you're sober right now? Like, what the hell? And then I would talk to them, and they're like, man, I always just thought you were, like, the party guy, but you actually have, like, a heart
A
and
reason.
a mind and all that. So
I love how you do just love to go out and vibe out with people, though, you know? Like, when I dream of people dreaming of the city, you're in the movie. You know, like, in my series of life, you're in it because, like, you're who you hope to meet in the city.
For sure.
You hope to come across a character like this who, like, knows why we're all out together. It's not because of the substance abuse. It's because we fucking need each other.
Can I ask you, do you think that you got to this place of wanting to provide a inclusive space for people to be as they are? Did that come from, a want, desire of yours to have had that space at some time in your life? Or is it just based on wanting everyone like to feel included? Like where does this come from? Because it's very like community driven, and a lot of us are very individualistically driven.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a good question. Thank you for the top-up.
Thank you.
I think it's a kind of a combination. I mean, definitely, it's interesting that you said like something that I always wanted, because so much of what we do or we manifest, good or bad, comes from like, childhood things. And I definitely know that I crave attention and validation, like 100%. You don't look like this if you don't want attention, and you don't do some of the stuff we do and try to get on every stage you can. I've just been lucky that like I don't approach it from a totally like me, just take. There is ego there, and I'm never going to deny that. Like, I know I'm getting something from it. But at the same time, I'm not just like, okay, it's me and then I'm gone. Like, if I get invited onto a stage or anything like that, I want to definitely make sure a couple of things. I make a connection with people, so it's not so transactional, and so they feel a part of it. Like, and that kept growing and growing, just becoming more the process of going, I really want the audience to feel involved. In the same way like you do stand-up and sometimes you do crowd work, and that's a part of it too. And so that's part of it. But I think also probably, there's a longing for that space of like a safe space. I grew up, like my family's awesome, but there was, elements of that, were what they were. And so I think all of us are craving some kind of like safe space. Yeah. So I try to hold that as much as I can, and we all have the lightness and the dark. Like people always go like, oh man, you're so zen and you're so nice and like the kindest person. And like, I have the other side too, sometimes I'm a dragon spitting fire, and sometimes I have like, there's nights when I go out and I don't want to talk to people because there's just like, I'm confrontational and there's something festering and I don't have like good energy to put out. Yeah.
But you still want to be out.
Yeah, well, that's tricky
feeds
too.
him.
Yeah, I'm like definitely kind of addicted to that. Like music did like save me in a lot of ways. Like I love that I get to see so much music and art and all this stuff, and that we live in that kind of city. But I also know a part of me, like I'm not naive enough to know that I'm not like running, So I'm at a point where I have for a while had this awareness that I know I'm like running from sitting with myself, even though I have sat with myself, and especially through the pandemic. I spent a lot of time doing like different ayahuasca ceremonies, and that was really cool. And just starting
I don't know
to.
if I knew that.
Plant medicine.
Yeah, like I always wanted to meditate, and I just never made time for it, and then time was made for me because I didn't have a choice. And
Hey, isn't that funny how that works?
yeah, and someone I knew, my friend Amanda, shout out to her, she sent me a link and was like, hey, I've been doing some meditation with this lady. I think you'd really like it. And Jen Mansell, who I'll also plug because she's like just awesome, such a saint and so beautiful. She's a breathwork facilitator and a somatic coach and stuff like that.
Magic.
Yeah, and she literally for the first 6 months of the pandemic, every Friday was holding like a Zoom breathwork thing, and it was totally like free or pay what you can. And looking at it now, it's like like thinking about like how I felt at that time, and going like, imagine holding space for people. And every time I do any of those sessions with her, I try to remind myself, like, I get there and I'm like, man, I really needed this, and going like, how much she feel?
Oh, it's so nice. You're so empathetic like that.
Yeah, it's important, and I've done it too, but that got me like started on that. I started kind of doing this breath work and stuff with her, and holy shit, like at first, like I went on journeys, like I went into space and became one with everything, and I watched my grandmother like turn into light and turn into a star.
Wow.
And that was crazy. Woo, he's gonna cry.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you for sharing that, deep brother. That's a beautiful thing. That's beautiful. Those are the miracles that we can choose to tune into that are always happening around us. And we label finiteness as sad or happy, and that's good to feel those things.
Oh, I love it.
Always with you, though. Always in consciousness, always in the spiral.
And side note, I decided like a long, long time ago that like if I needed to cry, like no matter where
Anytime.
I was like, it's happening, because
Good.
so many people and so much of time are like, oh,
Lock it up.
this is embarrassing. I don't want to do it in public. When I did that, like that opened the floodgates. Like I was crying at shows, like on the streetcar, like everywhere. It
Absolutely.
really just came pouring out, and eventually, you know, slowed down. But I was like, no matter where I am. And sometimes I'm with people and, you know, they start to cry and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I go, no, man, like let it out.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep that in. Like, go.
So much more healthy.
Literally have a playlist called Cry Me a River, and like anytime a song makes me cry, I put it on there. And also if it's like if I'm listening to something in the car, wherever, it makes me cry, I like put it on repeat.
Yep.
And I just keep
Yeah,
going
let
as
it-
long as it keeps
1000%.
coming. But I think part of, so it's interesting what you tap into too. I think in that moment it was probably a combination of feeling myself back in that space when I isolated for like 3 months by myself in an apartment. Felt kind of like Tom Hanks, like, well, sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But also my grams, like she passed away, you know, and I miss her and stuff. But having that experience first, where I did those breathwork sessions and I watched her turn into a star, when she passed, like I knew
It was all good.
where she was.
Yeah.
And it was wild because, like, you know, it hurt, but not the way I thought. Like, I remember over the years being like, man, like my grandma's like so special and such a big part of my life. And I was like, man, when she goes, like, I'm gonna be destroyed. And I wasn't. Like, it hurt and I missed her and I had my moments, but I was like, she's good and I still feel her.
Yeah, she's more part of you almost now more than ever, like in a weird way. Like it's like in consciousness and part of your being now as well.
Had you consciously asked for some guidance around that or around that vision, or was that something that just like kind of came out of nowhere, the grandma turning into...
It just came.
It just came, eh? That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, like I would just breathe with her, and I still have some of that stuff, but definitely in the beginning, like the journeys I went on were like wild, and like it just was what it was. I didn't necessarily like influence thoughts. Like Jen, a lot of times at the beginning will be like, if you have an intention, like think about that now, and sometimes I did, but that one I didn't specifically because she wasn't in that place at that time. She was, she was in an old folks home, but she was like fine.
And do you have any sense of time while this is going on?
Well, it's always that interesting balance where I'm like, there's still a part of me that knows like I'm in my living room
Sure.
and I'm lying on a mat and whatever, and then there's this other part that's there. So I'm never like
Questing.
yeah, so I'm never like totally lost and just like, well, what happened? But yeah, it was just like a wild journey, and I had other ones where I saw visions of like me and one of my best friends at the time, like in it, like having a cabin in the woods, and then kind of like saw like our sort of almost like tombstones or where we were buried, and then watched like just all these visions of us kind of turning into nature, and being like birds flying over the ocean and wild stuff. So with my grandma, like I didn't ask for it, but it came, and it was, like I said, a beautiful thing because when she actually passed, and that was the first time, like you always hear people like, oh, say at funerals and stuff, like they're always with us and they're always around. And like, I get that, but to me it was something that was like said, and I was like, yeah, but this was the first time I really felt that. I would take these walks and I could like feel her around. And one night I was sitting in the car and like parked, listening to music, which I do a lot. Like my car is kind of like my safe space. And I remember at one point just looking out the window, and I like looked, and there was just a little tree, and it was blowing in the wind. And it was like, that's my grandma waving,
Yeah.
And I
You
could
could
see,
feel it.
because when I used to visit her at the old folks home, like when I'd be leaving, and it was kind of like look back, and she'd be sitting and she'd wave at me, And so it was like wild just to actually like feel these things and be like, I can feel the presence.
Accept them as
How-
the love that they are.
How does it, if it does, how does that change the way that you move through the world as like
Everyday
a
life.
three-dimensional human?
I mean, during that time, it was really interesting, and I miss it because I've sort of definitely reverted back. But like at that time, all of it combined, right? I started doing those like breathwork sessions, and that kind of opened that. And then a friend of mine, Tanya, shouts to her, she was starting to do Reiki.
Nice.
So I did like
Love
one
that.
session with her just before the pandemic hit, you know, and she was just starting, and I kind of lied down, and I felt a little bit, but it was just nice to rest. And then through the pandemic, like we messaged at some point, and she's like, I've been kind of seeing people and working and like feeling my power build, and I'd love to see you again. And then I went and I was like, holy shit, this is what it is.
Wow.
Like I literally sat like with myself as a child. Like I saw that the first time, the second time, like he was up in a tree and he was like, come up, come up. I used to climb trees when I was younger, you know, and I climbed up in a tree and literally had a conversation with myself as like a child.
Whoa.
For like 45 minutes.
Yes.
You know, so all that, and then her mother is a beautiful, beautiful medicine woman, Angie, and her and her brother Dane were like facilitating these ayahuasca ceremonies and stuff, and like up north, and it kind of just felt right. She was like, have you ever tried this? I'm like, no, and I'd thought about it over the years, but I think it was the right time because of doing kind of like the breath work and the Reiki and like priming myself. And coming out of all that, like I definitely started to move different. Like I felt different and I felt at peace, and I was seeing people, and sometimes like people were coming at me and I felt like the Matrix. I was just like,
Whoa.
Yeah.
just dodging bullets, and I was able to kind of stand in the eye of the storm in a lot of situations.
Yes.
And also offer people this like space. And it's interesting because it's like there's a guy, what's his name? He has a podcast called Ebb and Flow, and I'm forgetting his name. He was a
Eben Britton. He's been
Yeah.
on Discipline Stoners.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
I kind of found him randomly.
He used to have a podcast with Mike Tyson.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's
wonderful.
Eben Britton.
Yeah, and he's really like living that life, and he said a thing where he was like, you know, anybody can be that, like do the ceremonies and be that person in those spaces.
Yes.
But he's
that's
like,
it.
but can you be that person like when you're at the grocery store or when you're pumping gas
Yep.
or whatever? And,
When you
Exactly.
get cut off in traffic.
Yeah, and he said when the rubber meets the road, like that's, you know, and I wrote that down. I have like a list of quotes I really like that I write in my phone. And that's the truth of it, because at that time, like, everything was shut down. I was literally just like taking nature.
It was crazy.
Yeah. And like I don't wish it on anybody, and it was hard for sure, but I was like, I had moments with it that were beautiful. Like I was going on nature walks, and I used to drive up to Riverdale and sit on top of my van and just play guitar and watch sunsets.
I remember
And I got back to writing music and just living in this place of like peace. But again, that was easy to do. I didn't have like
Yep.
a job, and I had saved money luckily, and so I wasn't in like financial strain and this and that. And so it was easy to be peaceful when there wasn't things challenging that.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
You know? And now it's an interesting, like, having moments of flashing back to that place and trying as much as I can to embody that, because now I'm back to, I told myself at that time, like, when things open, like, I'll go out 2-3 days a week maybe, but I'm going to keep doing this. And sure enough, like,
It ramps up again.
yeah, I'm
Because
out
you're excited.
Yeah, I'm out 7 nights a week, and I'm back to the same
You know,
lifestyle.
so do you know Ram Dass or Alan Watts or anyone?
I know both of them, not super well, but a friend of mine introduced me kind of to Ram Dass. She
Yeah.
put something on. I was like, what is? She's like, you never heard of this guy? And I watched the documentary, the one kind of at the end of his life. and
Yeah.
he's so, he's so cool.
He's
so
very cool.
So prolific.
One of the main lectures, so he's an American philosopher who philosophizes mainly on like Eastern methodologies, I suppose. And but there was one time where he was doing so many psychedelics and just getting high and wanting to be high. He wanted to be with whatever we want to call it, right? Source, God, just energy, whatever you want to call it. And this other philosopher called him out, and he's like, you're basically forgetting the divinity of your humanity. Like you're choosing just to be focused in on one half of you. But there's this other half of you that is physical and it's human and it's messy and it's grungy and all of that. And like you're missing it. You're missing it by just choosing to be high all the time and not like paying your bills and like doing these things this structure that we
Yeah.
live in. And there is something divine about that as well, but we don't really look at it like that, especially when you've had, crazy esoteric sort of otherworldly experiences.
Yeah.
But it hits me hard because it's like, oh yeah, like this right here this is great. Like I like that we can touch this and like be in our physical senses and like it's really, we're really lucky just to be able to do that and to not forget about it, to not condemn that aspect of ourselves.
It is such a gift to have a body.
The non-perfection of what human is really like perfect in its own way.
Totally, and that's like where the growth is. I mean, it is that interesting combination because it's funny that you touched on that because through the pandemic, again, having sort of luckily like money and time and all that
Yes.
and resources, I did like 2 ayahuasca ceremonies. I did a bunch of mushroom ceremonies, and that was like through the pandemic was the first time I ever did it with intention. I had done mushrooms since I was, I think 16, 17, like I started in high school, and like this was the first time that I ever decided to microdose or did these ceremonies with Angie, the same medicine woman,
With an
where
intention.
it was an intention other than like getting high and just seeing stuff and having
That's what
fun.
we say, like that Mr. Burns meme. You ever see that? You have to do the inner work. You can't just do the mushrooms.
Yeah, and it's that, but at one point, and like bless my parents because they, they've always been supportive, but I'm sure it's not easy. I was doing Cambo, and I don't know if you know Cambo's like, there's these tiny frogs in the jungle that they find and they take their venom and like, they basically like, they use usually like a stick will light it and they use it to burn you to break your skin and they put this stuff in there and it's this whole like physical and like emotional purge and cleanse because like it and don't quote me on all this because I'm not an expert, but it kind of like your body thinks it's under attack, right? Because it's this toxins in your body, and so it starts flushing everything like to your stomach, and you purge. So it flushes like all these toxins out of your body and really cleanses you. And it also can be an emotional purge, But explaining that to people, like I did one before the pandemic, and then they were like,
The frog thing with the
Yeah.
cutting? Wow.
and the first time I didn't really do it right. Like I misunderstood the instructions, and so it was just a whole lot of me like puking and not being in a good place. And I didn't, the second time I was like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. But that first time I remember.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, you're supposed to, you kind of like fast, and then when you get there, you're supposed to drink like close to like a liter and a half of water like before the process and then go. And I thought that was like through the day, so I was like all day trying to drink water and like peeing a bunch and all this, and then I got there and they were like, no, like that's not supposed to be it. And then the shaman was like mad at me kind of, and I was like, ugh. So I did it, and it was mostly just like physical and like just.
The shaman was
just
mad at you?
Were you supposed to drink all of the water all at once?
Yeah, kind of like when I was
Gotcha.
there, So some of that. So he was a little frustrated, and so
That seems like something that's like should be below a shaman's
I know
nature.
It was weird, and it's no, slight on him. He's a powerful guy too, but it was just, that's a weird.
He was having a human moment.
Yeah, and that's a weird vibe to like go into though.
Yeah, I think
Be
that-
like, oh, the
Yeah,
guy
for
guiding
sure.
me
That right
is
there.
frustrated,
Yeah, that has to do with the amount of relinquishing and trust.
But I remember doing that when, and again, that was like a couple hours just in that space, like, puking and not really being able to focus on anything but that. But that one was funny too, because they were like, cool, you should, they let me sleep for a while, and I eventually woke up and they're like, you should probably rest. And I was like, I'm going to go to the open mic, because it was a Sunday and supermarket was up. And I went, and my face is like swollen, like this thing swells me up. So like bridge of my nose is swollen and stuff. And I like showed up to the open mic. I was like, hey, and everyone's like, are you like, did you get punched in the face?
Oh my
Are you
God.
like okay? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm like, it just, it was with this shaman and he like put frog venom in. My friends were like, okay, but also kind of like, I think Branko might be fucking losing it.
Yeah.
And I got on stage and I told everybody this before my performance. I was like, I explained this experience. I was like, I'm in this basement. This guy burned me and he put this frog venom, and everybody's looking at me like, okay, like cool, And so back to what I was saying with
Drug addict musician alert.
right? And so back to what I was saying with my parents, like, again, they were supportive, but at some point, you know, they're like trying to figure out, okay, like I'm telling them like, yeah, so I told them everything, like they're putting this venom in me, and then I did like, you know, a DMT
Nice.
as well, 5-MeO DMT, which comes from a toad in the south in the desert that lives underground for I think like 10 months a year, and it comes up and they get it, and either way, so explaining this to people is
That's
like,
what Mike
holy
Tyson
shit.
had.
Did
the
you
toad.
have you always had an honest relationship like that with your parents?
No, because in high school they weren't okay with me smoking weed, and
So fucking lie.
yeah, so I remember like coming home one time, like, you know, high, and I don't know. My mom said I told her I was high, but I don't really remember, and she might have asked me when I was in the States. I was pretty fucking high, and they were just like, you can't do that, like it's not okay, and so I was like, okay, like I won't, and I fully lied to them because I knew I was going to keep doing it, but to sort of like keep that relationship, you know, and it was interesting
for
through
sure.
time, like she'd catch me at some other point, and they were like, listen, like, you know, when we get in that fight, like, I told you can't do this. I'm like, okay, I won't. And there's this funny, I think it's still, they probably took it down because now the top part of their house is an Airbnb. But in my mom's room, there was this frame thing that said, like, I, Branko Skykick, will, like, do my best, like, I forget, it was like, will no longer smoke weed and will do my best within my ability to get, like, the best grades I can. And I, like, signed it and dated, and it was up there forever.
That's
but I,
hilarious.
through that whole time, like, kept, you know, same with, like, drinking. So we didn't.
How are you gonna get good grades and not smoke weed?
Was there guilt involved with that, or were you just like, this is just my
That's what I gotta
autonomy?
do.
Yeah, I don't remember there being too much guilt.
That's
I
good.
think it was just sort of like, I'm gonna do this, so like the lie is sort of what needs to happen, because I just knew like I'm not gonna stop doing this stuff, and we're gonna keep fighting, you know. And I don't. It's hard to say what would have been better, like if they had maybe just accepted like, cool, like if that's what you're gonna do, we at least can know about it. You know, I had friends whose parents were, you know, they were like, do it here
Yeah.
Yeah.
at our house, like that classic thing where they're like, cool, we know you're gonna
Shout
do it
out those
anyways.
parents.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
My mom was that with alcohol.
Yeah.
Same. My parents were that with alcohol too.
And I get it
Not
all.
with weed though.
No, but it's, you know, and it can be a scary thing. Like some people do go down some roads with that kind of freedom and all that. And I feel like, I don't know if my parents really smoked weed. I felt like they didn't because of the way they treated it.
Sounds like
Yeah.
it, yeah.
And I talked to my dad years later about it, and he said he tried it once, and he was like, I didn't like it because just like it didn't make me feel in control, which is funny because
That's the whole point.
Yeah, and it was just funny because like, you know, we're Serbians, we're drinkers, and like, you know, he definitely drank, and like I'd see him drunk sometimes, so it's funny to be like, oh, that made me not feel in control. It's like, but this, you know, and my mom, like, I don't know, maybe she tried it, never talked to her about it, but I can't see her trying it. And I'm not one of those people, some people are like, no, not my parents. The way they treated it, I was like, I don't know that you could.
Think about it like that if you've
hold those
yeah.
opinions and seen at least the consistent side of it.
Yeah.
Because I think what's happening when people get uncomfortable at first, it's like they're in their head about something very much like you and the shaman that day. And they're experimenting in a new space, and the new space is kind of going to show you all the parts of you that you may not want to accept but kind of need to be dealt with. Like, that's what weed does, you know, it's like, what you're actually feeling anxiety about is this. And then it doesn't solve that for you. It just shows it to you.
Yeah.
And then you got to be like, okay, like, either I have the capacity to take responsibility for this emotion right now or not. And that doesn't all come in like one get high and understand how to take inventory of yourself emotionally. It's like people have their own lives going. They let loose when they have a drink. That's a compartmentalized form of like kind of inebriation expression, and they're not interested in like kind of what I think is like the meditative work that comes with cannabis. It's if you try to use this as an escape, I think it can drive you all sorts of places if you're not like having that intention that I think plant medicine requires. I think this is like Kaza light.
Yeah. No, and it definitely can. And that was what was interesting too, and obviously they wouldn't have known this, but I was pretty self-regulating just in terms of like, I remember I started smoking weed when I was in grade 8, which is probably way too young, but I did, and all through the summer and stuff, and that was a crazy experience because I didn't know. At first I was like, I'm not doing this, and then decided to, and I remember my friends took me behind the strip mall, and it was like probably like 30, 40 kids back there. I was like, holy shit, like everybody I know is smoking
everyone
weed.
was smoking up.
There every
Shit.
lunch, like there was all these kids, and I was
40?
like,
That's a lot.
yeah, I mean, and looking at it now, I mean, my memories.
The
so,
alley.
like
It
it
was
might have been 3 kids, but there
It
was
was
a
probably
lot.
at least 10,
At
which
least
is still
10.
a lot.
I bet
Yeah.
it was like 3 or 4 groups, right?
Yeah.
Scattered amongst the alley. So each group, like your group had like 5 or 6 boys in it. So you assume they all kind of had 5 or 6 boys, but one group may have had 3 people, one group may have had 10.
Yeah, and that was wild, you know, and I smoked like all through the summer, and then I was going to high school, and then I decided like, okay, like I'm, you know, gonna only
Good, thank
smoke
you.
kind of on the weekends because high school was sort of like, it seemed like the big leagues,
Right.
You know, because at that time when I started, like I was going to class like in grade 8, like high, you know. Yeah, we would smoke. And
Whoa.
we thought we were smart. We would put Visine in our eyes, and we'd spray cologne, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
we would like go in and be like, yeah. And I remember one day going to my friends like, dude, you like smell like weed. I was like, shit.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we were doing that, and when high school came, I was like, okay, I'm kind of gonna chill on that because I need to focus and whatever. But back to my point of self-regulating, like when it stopped feeling good for me, there was a period when like every time I smoked, it gave me anxiety, like what Evan was saying, maybe because of that, maybe because it was showing me other stuff, and I would have just sort of like these dark thoughts, and it didn't feel good, and I was kind of like, what am I doing with my life and all this stuff, and so when it stopped consistently feeling good, like I put it down
Yeah.
because I was like, this isn't serving like the purpose I had for it, which is like he said, not always the right purpose, but it was like a feel good thing.
Yeah.
So I literally stopped for like a year, you know, and then started again, and it felt good. And anytime it consistently stopped feeling good, I stopped.
Yeah, and that's everything that we hope for, right? For anyone using any type of stimulant or depressive or whatever, like check in with it. Like you should be tuning into your body as much as possible and really like making sure that it's still serving you.
Yeah.
Because it can be sneaky, you know? I've definitely used weed at times that I wanted to numb out and just fucking not deal with anything. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. You just need to be aware of what you're doing. Hey, I need to fucking numb out for the night. That's my intention. That's what we're doing. But if it becomes like I'm running away from, you know, those 3D responsibilities that can feel super heavy sometimes, man. Just like opening up the TD app sometimes. You're like, you know.
What numbers are going to stare back at me this time?
No, totally. And intention's like the right word there. Like that's
Yeah.
what's important in anything in life, to move with intention and what your intention is. And like you said, it's okay. Like everybody, I always say, like, man, whether it's a bag of chips or a bag of Coke, it's the same thing, and it's not, obviously, but everybody has their coping mechanism. Like at this point, I don't drink alcohol, I don't drink coffee, I don't smoke weed or cigarettes, I don't do any hard drugs. Like I'm literally sober basically like all the time. Sometimes I do mushrooms a bit. I went on a camping trip and did some edibles recently. Holy shit, did I get high.
Fuck
I
yeah.
went fucking flying, bro. I think I did like something like 60 milligrams or something.
Of
and-
THC?
Yeah, and I hadn't done it since like the year before. So either way, but mostly I'm like I'm
Did
sober.
you have fun?
Except, yeah, it was a riot, man. I was like,
good.
holy shit.
As long
We
as
got
you're
in
having
a
a good
canoe
time.
and like our friends pulled up beside us, and I was like, I felt like I was watching an action movie. I was so high, and I was like, holy shit. And it was, yeah, I was having a fucking time,
Good.
bro. But I
In
accepted. I
nature.
like, yeah, and I was in the place where I was like, I know I'm high. Like I'm along for the ride.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm sober, you know, and part of that was like it all just sort of happened in its time.
Yeah.
Like I tried cigarettes and never understood that. I was like, it tastes like shit, smells like shit, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
Then I found weed and I was like, tastes good, smells good, gets me high.
Yes.
So I stuck with that. So I was lucky to not fall into like the trap of nicotine. And my friends were never like peer pressure friends, you know. And then found weed, and then was on and off with that, and saw some psychiatrists, and they were like, you may or may not be bipolar, and I'm still not entirely sure, but I was like, maybe. And they were like, this probably isn't good for you, and I was like, no worries. Like it wasn't big in my life, and who knows, maybe there's a way now to come back to it, but I'm good, you know.
Nice.
So I put it down, and then alcohol, like I drank, high school, and then started running parties. When I was like 24, I started running a party, and it became very successful. And I started running another one that became very successful. And I quit my day job, and I haven't had one in 15 years. Shouts!
Yes.
Freedom.
When we were first becoming homies, I remember I produced this song with Tyson and had this guy Chronicles on it, and you let us shoot a music video with you at one of your banging parties.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That was
The Wednesday
Downtown
night.
Nights.
Downtown Nights.
Yeah,
And my man
We
Branko
just
was
saw
in
that
it.
video recently.
Someone
didn't
just
we?
sent it to me.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
wow.
And
fun.
it's so
That was the best
good-looking
part
still.
of it. Yeah, he's
Very
in there.
good.
He's in there with this bikini on. It's just you became a local legend with those parties. I gotta say.
No, it was fun. Yeah, that was, shouts to Sneaky D's. We did a night called What's Poppin' for 11 years before the pandemic, which is crazy. But
Lineups around the block.
yeah, it was, in our peak for sure. There was lineups down the street, and it was this beautiful, and speaking of what we were talking about to tie it back to holding space for people, the promoter asked me and my best friend to come on board just because we knew a lot of people, and we started doing that, and all our friends were coming, and it was kind of like a house party at a bar.
Yeah,
But all
that's
these
what it
other
felt
people
like.
started coming, and I think part of what they gravitated towards, one, our DJ shouts to, my buddy Tyler was doing it for a while, and then we got DJ Mensa on, and he was our house resident DJ, and he's, shouts to Mensa.
Yeah,
he's
he is dope.
He's one of the goats.
Yeah,
And
for
so
real.
the music was there, but I think also a lot of these people were going to different places, and probably King Street, Richmond Street, clubs and all the, no offense to anybody, but all the bullshit that goes along with that, the
Yes.
lineups and the crazy covers and the guys that want to fight and
Yeah.
the posturing and whatever, all that.
It was
stuff that is
truly
not for me.
a good fucking vibe. I've only ever been to parties in Scarborough or Brooklyn or you catch my drift here. It's very urban surroundings where we can all get kind of sweaty and you don't know everyone, but everyone's kind of you're bumping into people, but it's all love. And it's one of those safe hip hop spaces where we can just really get down. And it had cheap beer.
Yeah.
Right, you're right. It didn't cost an
the
arm and a
days of
leg.
cheap
And what was it?
beer.
A $10 cover? I think
It was $5 for a really long time. Looking back at it
$5
now, and
cover.
not to be a capitalist, but looking at it, it's
You could've-
crazy that we didn't. We eventually raised it to 10, and even that was funny because we did it for 5 for years, and
Yeah.
then raised it to 10, and people were like, "Yo, bro," and I was like, dude, if you
Should've
were at
been-
a job for
Yep.
7, 8 years and they never gave you a raise,
A
would you
5
stay? And people
million.
were like, no, because it was crazy to them because that's literally a 50% jump.
Yeah.
But I'm also we've been charging you $5.
It's 100%
For
jump
whatever.
From their perspective.
Yeah.
On the way down, it's 50.
not a 50%.
For them, it's hundo
100.
up.
Yeah, sorry, my
No,
my math
that's good
sucks.
though. But no, you're right. You deserve the raise. You threw the parties. You earned the rep. Lineups around the block, and people still came, right?
no, 100%. But
And you get a ticket when you come in.
sometimes we had got drink tickets, and and that led to kind of I was getting handed a bunch of drink tickets and being whoa. And I already drank, but then once I kind of quit my day job and was doing that full time, that allowed me to kind of really go down a rabbit hole of just sort of going out every night and drinking and partying, whatever. And I had fun, and it's I don't regret any of it. But by the end, for sure, there was, I was 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week drinking, and not I was really lucky to not be addicted to it, and so I try to hold space whenever people want to have those conversations, but I never try to act like I understand that world.
Yeah.
It didn't have a grip on me. It was just something that I was able to do because it was sort of in the realm, and I didn't have a job I had to get up and go be responsible at in that way.
Yeah.
So I did that for a lot of years, and then I got sick and was home for 2 weeks. I caught hand, foot, and mouth, which adults don't really get. If you got friends with kids, they'll definitely know about it because mostly kids
Yeah,
get
kids
it.
get it.
What is it? Hand, foot, and mouth.
It's called hand, foot, and mouth. This is the funny thing. By
What
the
the
end, when I went
fuck?
to, I saw about 12 or 13 different doctors, and none of them could really tell me what it was. So I was falling apart. I had spots all over me and joint pain and
What?
sores in my mouth and fever and shit. I thought I was dying. It was crazy.
Wow.
Jeez, bro,
Yeah,
what the
and
fuck?
so I was home the whole time, and I remember smoking weed the first maybe 2 days, and then I was like, no. So I'd be high and be like, what's happening to my body?
No.
So I put that down, and then I didn't even think about drinking, so I left that alone. That was about 2.5 weeks, and then finally I saw some doctors, and they told me what it was, but by that time they were like, it's pretty much through your system. This is the funny thing. I was in Western, and there was a doctor, and there was about like 5 or 6 like new doctors that were kind of shadowing her. And she goes over to talk to them, and she's like, yeah, I think it's the cocksucky virus. And apparently, I mean, that's what I heard at least. And I was just like, okay. I was like, listen, I don't want to be childish, but I'm like, are you telling me somebody named it the cocksucky virus? Like, what? And they all started giggling. And so apparently that's the medical term. But don't quote me on that.
Cocksucky virus?
Yeah.
That's-
Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, but
Sucks cock.
That's what I heard.
This fucking
But-
condition sucks cock.
Right? But otherwise, hand, foot, and mouth. I mean, it would have been cool if it was cocksucky.
Handful of
How,
mouth.
how long did it take to run through the system?
So it was about like 2.5 weeks.
Fuck.
You know, and again, that's wild, and it's crazy when you don't know. If they had been like,
Yeah.
"This is what it is," and you'll be fine, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
Also, if they knew what it was, I think they probably would have given me antibiotics, and that probably would have made that not happen. You know, but like, because it was happening and because I didn't know every day,
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
were like, I'm alive. Yeah,
there's
for
something
sure.
new
for
every
sure.
day, and I was wearing like
shit.
masks and gloves like before it was cool, you know.
Yeah.
Because I lived in a house with like a couple guys from my band and a few other guys from another band called the Johnstones. Shout to them. And yeah, and I was in a basement, no windows, so I was like, I can't stay down here. So I'd be in the living room, but like with a mask. And my roommates were cool, but they were also like, oh man, like, but probably going like, I don't know if this shit's contagious.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
So it took about 2.5 weeks, and then I was finally okay. And I think
my
like
goodness.
I went out maybe like once or twice, very briefly during that. But
Jeez.
New Year's was, I think, kind of like my first real night out.
That's good timing.
Yeah, it worked out. And then like I just decided to chill, like make sure my body was cool and that like, you know, wouldn't come back, even though I don't think it really works like that. But still, I was like, I want to make sure my body's okay and like good. So I sort of was like, I'm not going to drink for now, just make sure my body's cool. And then I just never went back.
Fuck yeah.
Because I was still running a party in my underwear. I was still the guy dancing on the bar. I was still like literally partying harder than like anybody I
Nothing
knew
had to
sober.
change.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized like, oh, like I don't need it. It stopped serving a purpose. I only really drank to get drunk, and when I stopped caring about getting drunk, I left it alone.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like intention. And so I just, you know, and everyone's like, is this forever? And I'm like, that's a long time. I don't know, but for now, and I have no desire to go back, like none whatsoever.
Yeah.
It never interests me in the least. So, silver lining to the cocksucky.
Always good to have a silver lining to the cocksucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to go through things and then after the fact, after the chaos of like what you've just gone through, be like, oh, there is something at the end of this that felt like maybe not that was worth it, but like I understand this journey a little bit more.
No, but it was worth it, and don't sell that short. And it really ties back to exactly what we were talking about before, where you were talking about Ram Dass and the kind of trying to be up there all the time and needing to be here. Like, this is where the growth is. And I think it's a combination of, like I said, when you find some of that enlightenment and peace and all that, that's amazing. But it's also like, I'm not going to say like your responsibility, because who wants that? But it is important to come and bring that to the world, just the same way that, like, you know, we've been gifted with the minds we have to do the art we do. And it's, you know, like people, I always say to people, like, this is the light I was given to shine. This is how I get to make the world a better place and a nicer place, relating back to what you were saying, like walking in rooms and trying to navigate energy and being on a stage and trying to really, like, bring that. And
Figure out how best to give.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that's part of it, but also like here is like where the growth happens. Like you can grow in a beautiful environment, but when you're in like the depths and the darkness, like it's not fun. But that's like that's where I've grown the most.
Yeah, so you have a beautiful acceptance of the adventure, though. I don't see that with folks who are also very peaceful. Like Winnie is very grounded and peaceful. She connects with that side of you, but also like you're willing to like go on a tour in a van and like eat burritos sometimes if that's what it takes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
Like you have adapted gracefully to a struggle that's allowed you to say yes to an adventure. I feel like we align so much where your life is an adventure. You can catch Branko and Ellevan out in these streets 3 a.m. Why? No reason.
Yeah.
You know, just like because it's
Yeah,
fun, because
yeah.
life is a miracle. Like,
Does your spontaneity ever, backfire?
It's come close for sure. I mean, it's been an interesting thing. Like, I definitely have taken some wild adventures that, looking back, were like I remember doing acid in Joshua Tree.
Nice.
And I went rock climbing, like 350 feet up a rock
Holy
face,
shit,
like
dude.
full ropes and harnesses. That was not the plan, but I was on a road trip for like 2.5 months through the States by myself. I just took my van and started driving, like New Orleans, Austin, went to San Diego and all the way up the coast. And I met some people in a place called Pioneer Town. It's in like this little town in the middle of the desert, and there's a wicked cool bar called Wicked Smart, called Pappy and Harriet's, and it's like this awesome little like legendary bar. And I met somebody, and they found me acid, and one guy was like, "You got to go find this dude in like the desert." And Mendo John, shouts to him, like, and I kind of went searching for this guy, and I went to the site they told me, and I was like, "Are you Mendo John?" And the guy's like, "No," and I was like, "Damn." And I started walking away, and he's like, "He's over there." So he had told me the wrong site, and I went and I found him, and he's like, got these Tibetan flags that are like tie-dyed, and he's sitting there smoking a joint with his girlfriend, and I'm like, "I've come in search for the one they call Mendo John," and he was like, "Okay, like, what's your deal?" And I was like, "My name's Branko." I was like, "I'm, from Canada, I'm traveling." I'm like, "Will, told me to come find you and that you have to take me on an adventure." And I was like, "I'm not going to hold you to that, but that's what he said." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Do you, we talk for a while." And then he's like, "Do you climb?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Do you want to?" And I'm like, "Sure." So he took me, he had a van like mine, but he had outfitted with like a bed and climbing gear. And he took me climbing that first day to test me out. And then he's like, "If you want to climb tomorrow, like, go to town, rent some shoes, like, come." And I went, and we ate breakfast, and we took my van, and I had the acid, and my plan was to take it and wander around the desert just looking at stuff, but I was like, okay.
God had a different plan.
Yeah. And I asked him, and the funny thing is, like, he's like, he's a beauty. He called himself the hardest working, like, unpaid tour guide or something like that. I can't remember how he phrased it, because he would just
Shout out Mendo John.
yeah,
John?
Mendo John, man.
Fuck.
He would constantly just take people around the park, because he would spend like 3-4 months there, like climbing, chilling, living, and like awesome. So he's kind of like a badass climber and like, an old deadhead and stuff, and like has done.
Nice.
So before we left the van, I was like, okay, expert opinion, like, acid and climbing. Like, what do you think? And he's like, man, I've dropped and climbed. Like, you could do it. And his girlfriend's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I was like, well, it's too late. and
Paul Tab?
And we went, and and
100?
and then we kind of like.
That would be stimulating.
It was wild, and as I scaled a bit, we got like there, and then he would go up first with like our ropes and plug stuff in and belay us from the top, and we would climb, and it eventually started kicking in. And this is like my second time ever really like rock climbing. I'd scrambled a bit, and I'd been in a gym once or twice. And the day before, it's like, okay, but this is like, now I'm 100 feet up, then I'm 200 feet up.
Oh my God.
Then I'm, and this was a harder wall. The day before is bigger pieces that I'm like, cool, I can clearly see like where to grab. This was like sometimes a wall, and there's like little cracks. There's like things like this, like my finger sticking out. And I go like, that's a good foot, and that's what they call it when it's like somewhere safe you could step. And
Do you
I'm
think
going,
the acid helped?
It was wild because like...
How did you not? Did you ever fall?
No, and it didn't get like fully out of control. I think my body probably kept it in check because it was like, holy fuck.
Yeah,
Because like,
the adrenaline.
I was like, maybe I'm going to be like tripping balls. And it never really happened, but everything was intensified. So
Acid is
like,
so fun.
yeah, like the anxiety was intensified, and the feel like looking back and being like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a fucking joke. And going and like all of that. And at the same time, related back to the injury I had leading up to that, my shoulder had, my back had started acting up, So now I'm on this thing and I'm climbing, and every once in a while, like my arm's going numb. And we get to like a place, and I'm like, shit, and I'm there. And while we have like 10 minutes to talk, and then he starts going up to set the ropes up, I'm like sitting there, like flexing my arm and trying to get my arm back because it's like asleep. I go to put weight on it and it won't, and I'm like, shit.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, and I get it back enough, and then climb, and we
Are
eventually.
you vocalizing this at all, or you're just this is all you?
I can't remember if I told him about the arm. At one point, it was funny. At one point, his girlfriend's like, "Well, like, how's the acid treating you?" I was like, "Pretty good." I was like, "It's only my second time." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't gonna tell you that." And so it was literally only my second time ever doing acid, and it was crazy. And we eventually, like, we got to the top, and we had this crazy view, like. I could see like all the Joshua Tree and little cars, and it was so cool. And I just started bawling, like looking at it all, like this stranger I'd met and his girlfriend, and the fact that they like took me in and like held this space for me and let me do this. And also just that was like, I don't even know. I want to say 3, probably 4 hours of climbing, but like a long. So it was like an odyssey, a journey of like that and me and like. And the only time the acid really I remember sitting at one point and I looked at the desert floor and it kind of was like,
yeah.
That was like when I had one moment of a break, everything else was engaged. But it was this whole thing, this like journey I'd been through and looking at them and the fact that they were such beautiful like human beings. And I just cried, man, and it was fucking awesome. So it's not necessarily a story about it not working out, because you were asking me if it doesn't ever work out.
Yeah.
But I did fly to
that
Vietnam once, and that was almost didn't work out.
Didn't we rap
boy.
about that on my special?
Yes. Yes.
Dude.
Insert here.
Insert here. Bro's been rocking with me for time. That was
Yeah.
true. You had a crazy trip in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, that was a time when...
I want to have that story you just told, though. Sorry to cut you off when you keep
Yeah.
going, but that story you just told, I'd like to have an animator build that story as you're telling it, like an after-school thing. Like, that was such a cool story.
Thanks, man. That's one of my favorite stories. And that's the wild thing. Like, that was... And people were like, what?
Like, I visualized the guy and his girlfriend. He's
Yeah.
a deadhead. Maybe he has a beard. I don't know.
Go to the wrong site first.
Well, have you ever seen... there's a bar named after him. I'm going to forget his name now. He's a baseball player. It's... Not the Emmett Ray. What's the other one? Doc Ellis. Have you ever seen that? He's a baseball player, and he, like... There's a story about that he tells about. He thought he had a day off, and he was hanging out with somebody, and he took, I'm pretty sure, acid. And then it turns out he was wrong, and he had to play baseball, and he went and played like a game in a stadium on acid, and he pitched a no-hitter, which is insane.
Holy shit.
Like, that rarely happens, and he did that on acid, and he's like telling this whole story, and you can go on YouTube, and there's a video, and this is what reminded me of it, because it's an animated video that somebody drew. So he's telling the story, and it's kind of showing all this stuff,
cool.
and him seeing stuff, and it's really exactly what you're talking about. It's super cool.
You can make the desert floor move if
Yeah.
it's sketched, you know?
But it was just funny, like, telling some people, and again, looking at it now, like, yeah, that shit is insane, But, like, I told some people, and they were like, what the fuck, dude? And I go, well, listen, like, my plan was to do this, like, but that's like a gift from the universe. And yes, I didn't have to take acid for sure, but come on.
It was fun, Mom.
Right?
Fucking relax. Good things happen on
Get
acid.
off my back. But that was like, that was a gift from the universe.
Yes, it was.
That I went to a bar. This is the crazy thing.
Yes.
Not to get too far down all this, but I went to Pappy and Harriet's. A friend of mine had told me about it before, and when I went to Joshua Tree the first time I visited, and this time I was going back, and I parked, and I heard like a cover band playing like a Stroke song I really like, and I was like, cool. And I like went in there, they finished their set, I started talking to the guy in the front. I'm like, hey man, that's great, like appreciate it. Turns out he's from Toronto, and he lives out there now and like has a place. I think he maybe runs an Airbnb, and we get to talk, and we know all these same musicians.
Don't you love how the world is so small?
The coolest.
Oh.
We're talking about Span the Golden Dogs and our buddies in Yukon Blonde and all these people we have in common. And I don't want to screw this up, he might have been in a band called By Divine Right. I forget which one he was in, but either way, we get to talking, and I just kind of was like, as he's about to go out to have a smoke, I go, just, putting this out there, like I'm a freestyle rapper. If you like want any of that in your set, like let me know. If not, like no worries. And he's like, cool, like yeah, we'll see. And he goes out, and at one point he's doing.
I love throwing this offer out. It's cool, this offer to slide in the table.
Yeah, and just put it out there. And they were doing a blues song, and they brought this girl up, and she was singing with them. And then at some point, he just looked over at me, and he was like, And I was like, cool. And so I hopped up and I freestyled and it worked out. And that was how I met, Will. Like these people came and started talking to me after. And
You
that was,
bring the light and the light comes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's how I met Will and these other people. And they were like, I told them, like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm trying to find acid. I'm going to Joshua Tree. And they were like, come back tomorrow night. And I did. And there was an open mic and I performed then too. But they got me the guy that got me the acid, and Will was also the guy who was like, you need to go find Mendo John and tell him to take you on an adventure. And it's all these things where I'm like, that's like a gift from the universe.
It is.
It has
and
to
it's
be.
because you brought your light forth. I remember setting up and do freestyle busking in Greenville, Georgia. And like this couple took me for dinner that night, invited me to their house for dinner the next night when I drove down to Charleston. And it's the energy of like doing something and being an attractive, peaceful person who like brings a charming skill. And like the miracle doors are right through what you can give and what you like to give. And that's right. There's no other way to explain it than it's a gift from the universe. Like, you could have chosen not to perform, and you wouldn't have met those people, and like have that, like you are following like a divine route of expansion that leads to like adventure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful, bro.
Yeah, and I can't, it's hard to live in that space all the time, and it would be wild to, like you said, there are times when you have to like do what you have to do and be responsible, and I'm finding that balance now. I'm partially in that phase of like working a lot and trying to like save some money, help my folks out, and like all this stuff. But when those things do present themselves, and again, like that was and that was kind of, I guess, a compromise of like, cool, I had this acid I was planning to do this. These guys suggested climbing, and it was like the Venn diagram of both. But again, like that was literally like that was an amazing trip. I love all of it. But that's like, I think probably my favorite moment and like my favorite story from that whole trip is like that. Because like I was like, that again, that was a gift. Like, are you insane? That's like you said, that's a movie, man.
Yeah, you gotta go with that.
And then this was the coolest. John had a dog named Muggles, and he apparently said, and again, don't quote me on this, but quote me on this, but don't. He said,
Don't go to John
Don't tell anyone.
and ask
well, he
about
said-
muggles.
Yeah, he said he said Muggles apparently used to be a term, like a slang term for like weed. And apparently it was like one of the nicknames, I think he said, for Oscar Peterson because he smoked a lot of weed, something like that. I think it was Muggles. I'm hoping I'm getting that right. But that was his dog. And when he found out I was a freestyler, he was like I kind of told him about it, and I never even really showed him, but he was like, oh, he goes, well, man, in like a week it's like Muggles' birthday, and I'm like having like there's a band coming to play, and like if you want, like come up and perform, and like I'll pay you. And I was like, okay,
Sick.
and we had our time in Joshua Tree, and I left, and I went like cruising up the coast.
America's like that.
I mean, everywhere's like that.
Everywhere's like that, but that's a
for sure.
vibe right there when you're
No.
on a vibe and
Yeah.
things are kicking.
No, it was a vibe, and like,
Did you do it?
yeah.
Fuck
so this
yeah.
was, I drove up the coast. I went to a beach and met some people, and they let me stay with them in San Fran because I was like, excuse you.
Bless you.
That was the only city I didn't have any people in, and I like went to this beach, Pfeiffer Beach, I'd heard of up the Cali coast, and like met 2 different people, and they both put me up at different points in San Fran. But I'd like just got there, and then Muggles' birthday was like in like 2 days, right? And I'm like, shit, and
You gotta get back to Muggles B-Day, yo.
Well, yeah, I just got to San Fran, and I was like, what do I do? I remember just sitting there debating because I was like, I just got here, and I really want to, explore San Fran. I've been there once before, but I hadn't spent enough time, and I was like, I really want to explore this, but also, if I leave, like, am I going to come back? Because that was like several hours like north of there.
Yeah.
In like what they call the Mendocino region of California, which is why they call it Mendo John. And I was like, if I go there, am I coming back?
They got lots of good weed from that region.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
totally.
Mendo.
Yeah. Mendocino, yeah. Like, I didn't really know the region, but they all grow weed up there, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I was like, what do I do? But then again, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this guy asked me to play his dog's birthday. Like,
I love that. That's what I'm talking about.
so I had to
That's
be like,
disposable income.
well, just gift from the universe. So I was
It
like,
is a
I was
gift.
like, I'll figure out the rest later. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I won't. I did end up coming back, which is awesome. But I drove up there, and I cruised, and I highway, then got on this like 2-lane road rolling through the mountains through this like town.
beautiful.
That was literally a bar and a fire station, and that was like the town. And then you get up into the mountains, you start driving, and you're like going into the woods, and that's where these people live. That's where like Mano John built a house, and like all these other people, and they all had like their own stations, like for whatever, and people grew weed and all this stuff, and it was like wild. And I went and I like played this dog's birthday.
Was it like an off-grid situation or like?
No, like he had
Okay.
electricity and that stuff, but they were just sort of like, you know, in their own
Yeah, yeah.
zone. They kind of figured it out, but it was super cool. And I hadn't smoked weed at that point in like a really, really long time. And he just, you know, he had this mason jar. It was like the biggest mason jar I've ever seen, full of weed. And he's like, "Do you smoke?" And I was like, "No." But then I just sort of was like, "Fuck it."
But
Like,
I do today.
Yeah, I was like, I'm here and it's Muggle's birthday and like, fuck it, you know? And I literally like smoked a joint and I got so high, and it ended up saving me at one point because we like performed and did all that, and I kept smoking weed and I was really fucking high. And he had a climbing rope hanging off a tree, and he's like, "You want to go on the roof and like jump off?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we got on his roof, and like he went down and like pulled the rope, and you grab it and then you like jump off.
Can you continue the story in rhyme?
Yeah. Then you jump off the roof, do what you can, smoking 100 proof. Didn't smoke in a while, so got really high. Met a guy named Mendo, he was super fly. Muggles, the birthday, had to celebrate. Said I smoked and I performed, and it was great. Then I got on the roof, poof, puff, pass. Check that.
Oh, really good, dude. Gotta give the gifts that the universe gives you. You follow everything that you do enthused. Show up to a bar and share that light that's in you. Then you get so tied in with the people, it's like you're the skin tissue. Then yes, you are rock climbing on acid with a dead head ready to grab it, whether it's flaccid or not. Yo, hanging low, heavy to rock, you know, sharing the flow. Yeah, doing a pop, yeah, bringing the energy where you go. And now you in San Francisco, and yo, Winnie, what you know about Mendo? How can we bend low? Looking for when the wind blows. Inspiration every time we go, and we know that we keep it 100 like C notes.
Branko is one of a kind. These two will rock your minds. Mendo is so fine. Branko, do you smoke? I do tonight. I do tonight.
Do tonight.
Don't usually, but I do tonight.
Do tonight. Do tonight.
Do tonight. Do it right. Pass me the joint. Dope. Pass me the rope. Put it between, jumped off the house. Man, I was bugging out. Getting, swinging, lower, please. Next to the fire, getting uneasy. So I said I gotta jump off, and when I did, it hit my head, busted open cause it's soft. Trust me, it split me open. Then I said, damn, I feel kinda broken. But I was a bit numb from the weed, so it helped me. That THC had a big gash. Was like my face, but said, fuck it, man, I'm still in the place. Put a piece of gauze and a bit of tape and said, let's keep rocking cause this shit's great.
Branko, you're one of a kind. These two will blow your mind. Do you smoke weed? Alright. Yeah, I do tonight. I do tonight. I do tonight. I do tonight. I do tonight.
And if you got a party, he's gonna do it right. Yeah, baby, hopping out the roof. Unruly, right? Yeah, because you probably didn't cop insurance. Yeah, because I certainly don't do that shit either. It's a certain move of mine just to try to save some money so I can get in line, because I ain't waiting in line. You got some cuts above your eye, fucking throwing some gauze. And we're ready to keep partying with pebbles or muggles. Yeah, get up those paws. Yeah, get up at dawn. Yeah, get a baton, baby. We just flow when we go out on the road, giving a light, and we just want to go with the scenarios that are handed to us. Yeah, follow the flow, understand the tour bus can just be your car, and let it be what happened next. Did it heal in another week? Did you end up headed back to San Francisco, or did you hang with the bros and leave after that?
Put that gauze on my head, and then I went to sleep. Yeah, I went to bed. He paid me that money, which was really great because my muffler fell off my van, and I had to wait. Went to a guest.
Yeah, let's keep it going. The beat's still going. That's so
That actually ended up happening.
Holy shit.
When I was driving up, yeah, like, it started rocking on the road, and the muffler came loose, and I was like, that's no good. And with the money he paid me, I went to a garage and they fixed it.
Oh my
and
God.
I had some money left over too, so it all kind of worked out.
Everything.
Because that muffler was probably going to fall off.
Everything
regardless.
is working out.
Maybe, yeah. And that would have been bad on the road, and maybe I would have had nowhere to go, maybe nowhere to flow. But then I was down and back to San Francisco, went down south, man, I hit that road. So I flow back, hit the San Fran SF, then I said I got it all good, and I'm feeling blessed. Sat for a minute on the bridge, said this is some shit and I'm rocking with it. Explored the scene, got down in hate, said I got it good and I'm feeling great. Like 69 after 68, hippies and peace and love, man, we wait. So I was down and I made some new friends, got it back but not smoking ends. So I remember it and I got it right. San Francisco is the place tonight, night.
Everything is working out. Everything is working out. You can trust the road. As you drive it now, man, when you're driving down, it's like I'm finding out more parts about me now. It's like, yeah, when I change my environment, I take me out of my usual familiar environment. Right? Environment rhymes with environment. And I just hit underneath the tire bench, and I'm just finding this. It's more exciting. I'm plugged in just like appliances. You finding this, rewinding myself up, and I just get alignment if I can let it flow and let it go. And you know we out of this world like a UFO, and you can flow anywhere that you go and show people how you do your thing. And people will bring that energy and want to hear you. Rings collect together when you talk and when you chat, and then you bring it all together, man. The fashion isn't pleather, no, the fashion is just better than what you see at the Met. Out in these streets, building your rep. I mean, it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7. Holler on the phone, you leave at midnight, it's 11. Yo, bro, I'm gonna swing through and hit your show. Tell us more about the experience of being a DJ, though. You diversify your skills, my guy, high all the time. Fuck a job, never going back to the pill. Take the red pill, see the good and see the bad. Seeing what you have on either hand, how you making bread.
15 years, no day job. Hit the DJ, turning I sway knobs. Yeah, when they move that booty, then I know I'm in the place and I'm doing my duty. So mix the tracks and I mix the beats and I move their hips and I move their feet, and they hear the bass from out the street and they say this DJ's bringing the heat, and they surprised by some of the tracks. Didn't think I had it in my library, but it's very, very varied and I got it very good. And I'm like a blueberry, nice and sweet when I'm bringing it. Shit. So I just mix and I scratch. I said I do it all good when I'm mixing the tracks, bringing it back, doing the throwbacks like you know. Said I got it all good on the 1-1 uno, maybe the 2. Yeah, that's the dose. Said when I drop it low, then they get that dose. You see what he did right there. Said if I'm on the decks, you best shake your derriere.
You got the medicine like the dose, you got the most, you ready to flow. How do you resist the temptation to hop on a mic over a song, you know, when they just book you to be a DJ, bro? How do you not hop on, change the song? Because it's fun, you're like, shake the thong.
We're going to have to rebrand to a freestyle show.
I think so.
Hey, we could do whatever we want. Thank you. That was fun.
Thank you, that was so good. So good.
Yeah, when you hear that chorus, that was awesome.
I'm learning.
No, I think what was awesome about that in particular is that I always say to people, like, freestyling is a slippery fish. Like, I've been doing it for, I don't know, 22, 23 years, and there's, like, still days when I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, you know?
That's, yeah. You'd have to, otherwise it would no longer be freestyle. I feel like there must always be times where you're like, it's like almost getting away from me. I've literally, and I have this on tape, I've seen him find the word like after he should have found it, basically. Like I have it on video where he's like, there's a word there and I'm going to make the pocket and I'm just going to make it. And there it is. I've landed it somehow.
That just happened now.
Yeah.
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 No, that's what I
and
mean.
it's really exciting.
Yeah, and it's good. It makes us human, you know. For me, it's like people always ask me, like, "Oh, did you sit and practice?" And I never did. I just was able to do it, and I made my way in finding stages and open mics and places, and I get to do it a lot, and that's how it built. But I have like mad respect for, you know, like Ellevan, Evan, who's doing his thing, because I saw him put in the work, like sit and freestyle and go
He
cool.
still does it. It's all he does.
No, for sure, but that's awesome, and and that's the discipline part of the disciplined stoners.
Love, bro.
And that's what I lack sometimes, and it's all good. It's been a
I hear
beautiful
that.
journey, and I wouldn't change it. But I look and I saw you like put in the time and go, cool. Like I'm gonna learn how to do double time. You did that,
Yeah.
and sometimes I watch you and it blows my mind.
Love you, brother.
And
Thank you.
you're so much more like technically proficient at me than it, but it's okay because like we operate different spaces. I say that and people are like, no, it's so, and I'm like, no, I don't need the pat. Like I'm good.
I
we
love-
occupy different
Yeah.
spaces.
Yeah, we
Definitely.
totally do. Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I'll never be, well, not never say never, but like where Harry Mack is, like that dude's a machine, and it's nuts, and that's someone that's put in the work, and I'll never be there
you got the
at this
real.
point. But him and I put on like a different show. We occupy different energies, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I would say, like Jimi Hendrix was a way better guitar player than Kurt Cobain.
Mm-hmm.
That's no slight on Kurt, but like Kurt wrote songs and like changed the world.
Exactly.
They both did, but like he did his thing, and it wasn't about like, oh, who's more technically this
Yeah.
or that. They occupy different spaces.
The impact, and it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I love what I take a page out of your book and channel things the way you truly have a silver spoon feed to people, though. Like the way people can actually digest what you're saying, though, and it's like so fun. Like it's like slow down the bar, make it comedic, put thought into the metaphor. Like I've seen you flip like T-shirts into metaphors and stuff, and I love it, man. Like I think exactly, it's like Wu-Tang, right? We all just have like different styles, and it's like okay, I can learn from that judo flip even if I'm fighting Muay Thai.
For
It's like
sure.
yeah.
And
I love
watching
that,
you
bro.
two together on stage too, it's a very harmonious experience. You really like you bring two different things on stage, and then you can tell that there's like love and support between you two when the other one is performing, and it's a joy to watch. Honestly,
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Keep joining us, please, as much as you can. You came to our Sticky Nugs DSL, which that's evolved into, we call it Paradox Live now.
and Bar Cathedral,
And Bar
DSL.
Cathedral, Rhythm and Flow, the DSLs.
Yeah.
No, and I always like appreciate you like holding space, and
Of course, bro.
like I said, I mean, there's a couple things. One, again, it's a beautiful thing. I think him and I connect in a, kind of comedic realm and being able to poke in the tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
And even though we're different elements, like that's where we meet.
We take it also like sexually comedic too.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's
Oh,
a
no
funny
kidding.
part always about like someone's hitting on someone. It can go either way. There's no realms. There's no actual consequences.
No,
Like
there's
there's
innuendo for sure.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, in that moment, like that's the human aspect of it. Is like sometimes I'm in like the flow state, like I'm just literally a conduit, and I feel. People always go like, "What is it like?" And I say like, there's these three elements. There's like me doing it. Then there's me like watching me do it.
Totally.
And be like, where am I going? Like I'm going like, what was that suggestion? What rhymes with that? How do I get there? While this guy's doing this and going, hey.
Yep.
And this guy's going, where are we going? How do we get there? Thinking, which is such a wild experience and cool. And then there's the third, which is like the source. And sometimes I'm on that and I feel like I'm just riding a wave and all I have to do is get out of the way. And it's so flowing and beautiful. And then there's times when I feel like I'm like walking through mud. Like even after this long, like there's days when it's like my brain just isn't really working and I'm like sitting there like trying, and that's why this was fun, because I had moments where I felt like I was like, yes, when I first started, because I didn't see that coming. He's like, rhyme about it. I'm like, yeah.
I love though you just say yes though. I mean you're one of my favorite people on earth because you're just like yeah okay cool.
No, but we have to. But like that was wild. And then I started going, and I had moments where I was like, oh man, I'm in it, and I was really feeling it. And I had moments where I was like, I'm fumbling. And then there's the critic, and I was sitting there going like, oh, people are gonna watch this, and what are they gonna think?
I know.
You know, and that kind of
Yeah.
that's why, I mean, part of the reason people are always like, where can I find you? And I'm like, nowhere. Like, and people are like, why haven't you made music? And I think that's a big part of it, is trying to get over that wall of
We have a
like-
song out.
We do, no, yeah. And like that was because you were like, we're making this and I'm putting it out. And I was like, okay.
It's on Bandcamp. I
Yeah.
mean it's not out on Spotify or anything.
No.
It's with Yoda Beats.
Yeah, shouts to him. And I have a cameo on, there's a wicked artist named Lane Weber, and shouts to him. And put me on a track too, because I freestyled with him live and then was making an EP and put me on it. But I still like, I remember that coming out and I love it, but I also like listen to it sometimes and I'm like, fuck, you know? And I get
Yeah, that's how
hypercritical.
everyone feels
Yeah.
though about their last shit. Like that's just the way it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know I've been operating like, yeah, it's definitely held me back, you know, and it's all good. But that's what's been wild about, like, knowing Ev has been a trip because we do the same things, and he has a discipline and like a motivation that's like crazy, like that. You know, you're like one of the most like motivated and driven people I've ever met in my life.
Thank you,
know,
bro.
and it shows. And I definitely lack that. And so watching you do things that I had thought about doing has been a trip. Like I remember selling shoes at Boathouse, and I'd go out to Dundas Square, and like shouts to Boathouse because they held it down for a while and let us go on tour and all this stuff. But I would go to Yonge and Dundas Square, and there would be people like busking. And I remember thinking about it, like Scott Jackson. Shouts to Scott Jackson. I just saw him the other day. I don't know if you know him.
Beatboxer?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, he's
like,
the man.
He's like, oh, he's such a machine. And I remember him being out there. He had a speaker and a mic, and he'd just be making like noises as people walk by, and he'd be beatboxing out there.
That's awesome.
And it's wild. He went, you know, from that to like now
The
he's
champ.
like travels the world, is like a world champ, and like and it's so wild. I just saw him at Revival the other night with Dr. Draw, and shouts to
Dr. Draw.
Yeah, shouts to Dr. Draw. And,
Sweetheart.
yeah, and they performed, and Scott got up there and kind of just started doing a thing, and it was insane. It literally sounded
Remember
just
you-
like a track.
You
like
and
he was-
I did a performance with
Wow.
Scott Jackson with
Yeah.
with Pixel Dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
down at Steam Whistle.
Oh,
Shouts to
yeah.
Pixel.
They Pixel
So-
Dreams had Ellevan and Branko freestyling over Scott Jackson
Yeah,
one day. That was a fucking
shouts to
good moment. It's a
Pixel.
very Toronto moment
Yeah.
at Steam Whistle nonetheless.
Yeah, but again, he's another person with like discipline, seeing him hone his craft.
Yeah.
But I used to go out there and see these buskers, and I remember thinking like, oh, like, that'd be cool to do that. Like, what if I got a speaker and went out there and freestyle? But again, the motivation was sort of lacking, and part of the thing was I was like, man, if it's up to me to kick my own ass, I have trouble with that.
Yeah,
I
me
was-
too.
yeah.
I totally resonate with that.
Like I was getting to work, like at that job I had to work 10 to 6, and I was still going out at night and waking up somehow and going to work, but because that was like I have a job and I have to be there,
Right.
I was showing up. Whereas I knew, okay, if I take this on, like I'm going to be in bed and look at the clock and be like, well, if I don't get up, like no one's going to be like, you're fired. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know? And so, whatever, all these things, but
Except
then...
life eventually might.
Well, yeah, whoa.
But no, you're right to your point. And I mean, I thought of like, yeah, the freestyle busking thing because like Spandy Andy. So I felt like I was just leaving money on the table. But yeah, I did like consider, I was like, man, I was surprised that you didn't do that yet. Because you were the only other like proficient freestyler I could, how can I put this without being very mean to other rappers? There's a certain presence that you have to hold people's attention and do a craft. You can be the best guitar player in the world. But if you don't make a group of people trust you, no one's gonna listen. And when it came to busking, I was like, my only, again, like never competition, my only person in this field that could do this, I think, is you. From freestylers I had seen up to that point, I'm like, I think when we walk by now, a couple of the younger guys now I know do it, and I'm like, I love to see it. Like, I love
Yeah.
to see it still going because I didn't really see it as a thing, and then it was. But I think that, like, you got to find the additional kind of structure with it that you're right. It does very much lay in discipline. My choice to do busking at the time was my ultimate statement to not having a job. It was my sneaky D's. It was my like, okay, I'm not making much money at all, like as a full-time musician, like trying to be a full-time musician, and I was kind of a promo model sometimes, and I just like would get jobs and get fired.
You figure it out.
And I figured it out through busking, meaning like I did treat it like a job. Like it's like my rap got tremendously better, my buzz and my brand got stronger, but those were all accidental because it was like, yeah, I'd get up at like, you know, it wasn't early as a job, like 8 or 9, but maybe like I get up at like 10, whereas I used to sleep into like noon, and then I like, you know, do my shit and then like get my amp and then like hit the street by like noon, and I treat it like a job, and I'd work from like noon to 3, and then sometimes if there's a Blue Jays game that night, I'd do a double and wait for the stadium to pour in or pour out, whichever shift I called it I wanted to do. And Yeah, I really appreciate you reflecting that to me, because it's like I didn't look at it like a structure or discipline, but it certainly did become that. And I think it's because it was my answer to, like, I can't have a job. Like, it's only a matter of time before I get fired.
Yeah.
Anytime I have, like, a boss, it's just like fucking counting down until you're gonna tell me to leave.
Yeah, and I've definitely had that over the years too, you know?
Right? But, like, I mean, like, it's like whatever offers your expansion, I think, in, like, the next step. And I think, like, the elbow grease you got by just, like, having such respect in the city, by being able to go to any room and get called up on stage. And I definitely know that feeling as well. But, like, you put in so much time rapping on stages, and it's like maybe that just didn't resonate in your journey, like, at that point, you know? Like, you had, like, other adventures on the horizon. I think whatever development way that we choose is all, like, divine to our soul contract, you know?
Yeah. No, and there's always like a time and a place and a reason, and that's all good. But like
And it's
I
always
said,
there.
No, for sure. But I always want to give like respect, and like I said, guys like you and Scott Jackson, like I watched, again, the discipline it takes to get up and make yourself do that and do it. So like I said, it's been a trip because, like he said, there's people that do what we do, but not that many. And shouts to Master Inferno, like he's out there busking now and doing it in a big way, and he's a badass freestyler too. So
that other guy
check
with the
him
deep
out.
voice,
I know that always sings. I'm forgetting his name right now.
real deep voice,
Yeah.
tall.
No, he's such a badass,
He's
and I hate,
and he's young.
I
He's a
hate
big,
that I'm
sexy
forgetting
voice.
his name.
Sweethearts, though, like
Yeah.
sweethearts, and
But they're doing it, But
they are the
like I
younger
said,
generation. Yeah,
With him,
We're
him
the-
and I are in a similar realm and style, and so watching him again, I had thought about busking, and then I don't know, 10 years later or so, watching him do it, and I'm like, right, I remember when I had that idea. And then, thinking about, tours, and then watching him, get on a little moped and, go to the States and just go, I'm just going to do this. And going, yeah, I had thought about that,
Love you, bro.
and whatever. And then him putting in, the work and
Yeah.
practicing, which I had thought about, and then him posting whatever. Everything he's done is stuff that, I've thought about, even, the production and all of it. So it's been a trip. And for full transparency, it's been a journey. There's so much love I have for you, and there's a jealousy side of going fuck. And it's not about you. That's about me being
bro, I feel you.
mad at myself for not doing some of those things. But it's a trip watching somebody just like Mark Ribier as well.
I was gonna say,
shouts to the GOAT.
we all have these feelings, and I appreciate you. It's an honor to be anywhere near a driving force to hopefully bring more life force, forward. But we all have that. There's the comparative nature of even look what JP has done.
Yeah.
He was sitting in the supermarket with us too, bro.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes
Yeah, shows.
Yeah.
it's incredible. We're,
is. It's
we're,
exciting.
We're all powerhouses, and we
Yeah.
all are inspiring each other constantly.
And
It's so
the,
sick.
The journey
Thank you for that
is
love, bro.
really unique. We're really not that different from one another, but each individual journey is so unique because we just truly only have our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you can be as objective as you can, and I think that's something that we should all strive to be on a regular basis, find yourself in objectivity, but ultimately you've only ever experienced the exact things that you've experienced.
No,
So
for sure.
you as a being right now in this moment, I feel is so unique to the world.
Yeah. No, and that's what's so important for everybody to find is that, like I was saying before, it's easy to look at people and compare, but then
Totally.
go, I'm different. And like I said, Mark Ribier was a bit of a trip because I remember, at one point thinking, cool, I'm going to do this, the freestyle thing in the band and whatever. And I remember sitting, shouts to Dave Wicklund, one of my best friends and my sax player in the ska band, keyboard player in Dinosaur Bones, the band I was in. I remember sitting at Trinity Bellwoods with him and being yeah, I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to just play shows and freestyle, and nobody's can tell me it's not going to work. Yeah. And again, sitting here is an interesting trip because I didn't fully follow through on that promise to myself up until now. But just having those moments of can this work? Because like we were saying, the human part of it, some nights I remember being at the supermarket and freestyling and doing these songs, and they all just turned out so perfectly
Yeah.
that I was man, if I could do that every song, every night, having moments going like, yeah, this is Madison Square Garden.
Yes, bro.
You know, and then having moments where I have like a slow night and a bad night and doing a song, and again, the audience still looks and goes, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like,
That's live performance, baby.
yeah, and you're, I'm sure, experiencing it somewhat with comedy, you know,
Totally.
and it just, and then those are the moments when I'm like, how did I ever think this was gonna work? Like, what if I sold out a room and people paid tickets and like that was the performance they got? You know, whatever. So just
That's just the self-doubt bullshit. You know that you already especially won over the people. It was so funny when I was coming on the scene, there were some people, especially from like the supermarket people, that like wouldn't even listen to me freestyle because they were like, Branko's the one. Like, get the fuck out of my face. Like, it was like, no, you really do. You have the crowd, you have the community, and like people love that. Like, you carry something special that's even beyond the rhyme. Like, if you ever think that you flunk a song, it's like you're so much more, you know, like than just the bullets in the gun. You're the whole thing. Like, it's beautiful, bro.
What a cool practice, though, to be able to be put in a position where you can choose to self-nurture and you know, self-love and like soothe and create compassion around how you're feeling.
How do you soothe? Do you soothe? You must. You're very with your thoughts. I feel like I smoke weed to get to your level.
Yeah.
Like, how do you soothe? What are some personal approaches to like?
I mean, the wild thing about like I've thought about things and kind of, but the wild thing is like the subconscious is what's crazy to me is like, we don't realize how much we're processing. And that's why I love stuff like this. I mean, conversations in general, this is beautiful. I'm so stoked to be here. Shouts. Thank you guys. But until you have like, you either journal or you have like conversations, you don't realize how much you process. Sometimes I have conversations with people and something comes out and I'm going, holy shit, I've never actually sat and specifically thought about that. But you realize like it was in there.
Yeah.
And I talked to people like I haven't been in a relationship in a very long time, and I talk to people sometimes and give them advice. Not that I'm like that guy, but they go like, how do you know so much about relationships? And it's like, because I talk to people all the time.
Yeah.
And I listen to them and I watch and I ask questions. If someone's having trouble with a relationship, I go, okay, and I ask them questions and I absorb. So there's like that aspect, you know, of like learning that way and collecting your thoughts. But as far as soothing, like meditation when I can, you know, and I would like to have a better discipline with that in terms of like, you know, making a practice of it every day. But at the same time, like I do it when like sometimes I'm at a show and I'll close my eyes. And like take a couple breaths and get into it or wherever. And I always tell people like guided meditations for a bit. And I tell them like, even if it's just a minute or 30 seconds, like do it. Because something is better than nothing. I'm like, if you feel like you have to like maybe light some candles and an incense and make a space and take 20, 30,
Sit
40
down
minutes.
for a minute.
Some people go like, I don't have that time right now.
Just
Lock
right
yourself
now.
in a bathroom stall, baby.
Yeah, but even just taking like a minute. Like sometimes I drive somewhere and I'm feeling a type of way and I'll get there and I'll park and before I get in my car, I'm like, okay, and I'll sit.
Those car
Put on a-
sessions are the best.
Yeah, put on a bit of music and even just do a couple of breaths a minute.
Yes.
So that's definitely like one of the ways, you know, like music is a beautiful thing, having these moments. But, you know, it would be good for me, beneficial to create more of that space. And that's the balance, which is what's the hardest thing I found in life is balance. Because like we were talking about when it was the pandemic, it was fully on that side of like, cool, now I'm like in nature and writing music and meditating and doing these ceremonies and sessions. And now it's like I'm on the other side of like working and grinding and performing and right back to where I was, which is what they said would happen if you didn't have the discipline. That's what's wild. When I did the ayahuasca ceremony, Dane was like, you know, again, the rubber on the road. He's like, anybody can come here and drink this medicine and do this thing. But when you leave here, that's the real thing, the integration of what comes through into your real life. And he's like, you have to live that every day and do the work. And he's like, we see people that come and leave here and go, wow, like I'm going to change my life and I'm going to have a different relationship and do this and this and this because it shows you things. And then he goes, you know, we see them a year later, 2 years later, they're back. Same patterns, the same type of relationships, the same stuff. And I watched it happen to me. Through the pandemic, I was like, I'm not going to go back to where I was. And again, I'm not knocking it. I feel grateful for the life I have, but I did. I'm back to like going out 7 nights a week and performing and entertaining and.
Is that your natural form, though?
Sleeping crazy
Would you be
hours.
trying to neglect your natural form if you tried to force yourself into something new? Like, what are the benefits of the other way? Like, how could you do that now?
Because I started finding inner peace, like for real. And again, like I said, that's an easier thing to find when it's not
I'm good.
when it's not challenged. But in those moments, and relating back to when you were saying, like, when you do these things, how do you come and operate into a 3D world? I found myself feeling different and moving different. And even when things started to open back up and I was seeing people, they were going, strangers were going, man, I really love your energy. And people always resonated with something, but more and more, so many people encountered always using the word energy, which I feel like people hadn't used before. And all these people I met were like, wow, I really love your energy. And you're just, so I was finding this like inner peace. I was accepting things and being okay with it. Death was one of those things until I was, faced with that. And then I was like, oh, right. And again, it's easy when it's not challenged. But, those were the things that I found. And again, finding that balance would be good to be able to like have some of that to keep cultivating that garden inside and then take the fruits of that garden and go feed the community outside.
Yeah, I definitely think, that was beautifully said. And I think it can be achieved, but I also think that like I'm reframing balance for myself because I've always had this like idea of what balance looks like, and I think it comes from kind of a very idealistic place of what life is supposed to look like, and then when you achieve that, that's balance. And I feel like now I'm sort of reframing balance. Like balance, you get like it happens over a lifetime. Like there are moments in life where you're at 100. And then there's going to be moments where you're at, 0 for a little while. And then, like, I don't know if it's really our choice when we when we get to experience those moments, right, at 100. And what your willingness to say yes to both. Because being crazy, busy out every night, that's a lot. But also, we have a hard time just, like, doing nothing. You know, like you don't really want either extreme, but if at the end of your life you're like, there was like a lot of mixture of, and it kind of levels out over the course of time. But then also we don't know if we're going to be in the future either, because you can't count on tomorrow.
No, and that's part of balance too, is being in this moment, but also, I didn't used to think about the future. Like when I was younger, I didn't think about like what I want to be when I grow up, what the future looks like. I was living day to day, and I think about it more now.
Yeah.
But you touched on some good points for sure. Like I think it's,
Can you continue the story and rhyme?
we'll see where we could take it.
Take it.
Take it.
Take it.
Take it. It's all about balance. Half empty, half full, the chalice. That right there is the challenge. You gotta hit it just like a mallet. So some days I'm up 100%, some days I'm down and I resent. In depression and down in the darkness, remember the place where everything started. So when I'm down looking for light, I could see that we gon' be alright. Kendrick, shout to Marley too. He said 3 little birds and they make me less blue. Bring it back when I sing that track. I remember the days, didn't know where it was at, but I tried. You won't always be down, but can't always be high.
Oh, can't always be high. No, there gotta be some downtime. Follow the ride of life, and you gon' have the time of yours. You can't be high all the time. You're gonna flow out on this ride. Yeah. Try to label something good or it's bad. Like wood to the bat, I just crack it out the park. Doesn't matter when it came across the mat. Smack. Whack it out the park, whacking off in the woman's change room. I don't give a motherfuck, I'm just hanging at the motherfucking YMCA, looking for the gays and the straights and the bis and the rest of them. I got the recipe to vibe with everyone, I don't give a fuck. I pull up in a truck and say, let's have lunch. Lunch on you, but rhymes on me. Yeah, rhymes on fleek, yeah, rhymes on 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, yeah, going heavy hitter. If you ready to get it, we together like a wedding. It's been Ellevan and Branko show since the day we met. Ready to kick a flow in any time in any set. Man, all respect, all love to the G's. Finding our way as we go across the country. All the ways that we can change and be. Now when you tell us how you feel about the things we speak.
Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. You just gotta go with the flow. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. You just gotta go with the flow. I'm learning every day, and I just wanna say, it's been a good day. I'm with my friends, hey. I am grateful to be here. I am willing to say that I would like this to happen more often than it does because...
Because. Yo, check it. I said, scrap the beef. Let's have it for lunchtime. Winnie on the scene with those punchlines. Crafting, yeah. She been on it. Said she's stand up. Plus she a comic. Damn. Getting that LOL. Got a story to tell. And she do it well. So respect and shout to the queen on the scene. This is how we do it. So fresh, so clean. Me and Ev since back in the day. Watching him grow, watching him play. Started to busk, rocked in that tusk. Said he's doing it, it's a must. No 9 to 5, we gotta break the mold. Said the system trying to get a hold. But damn it, slowly I'm getting old. And fables I've been told have been busted out the window. Yeah, like we rolling in the Pinto. Yeah, like beans in my burrito. See what he did there? Man, I'm on the scene, yo.
And I remember you and me sitting in Sneaky D's doing the video for my first little video single that I had to be, speaking about all the people that I seen around the scene. Yeah, it was Branko, it was number 7 or number 6. Went around and talked about the shit and how you socialize and how you changing lives, how you inspire guys and girls on front lines, doing what they gotta do 100, rolling around like tires. If you find it your desire, if it's burning like a fire, if you earn it then you find it, so you burn it, so it might be double digits. If you cook it then you notice that I find it. That is my inspiration. You are who your friends are, so I bet I'm pretty cool, 'cause I'm hanging out with you. You know it's inspiration. You are who your friends are, so I must be pretty cool, 'cause I'm hanging with you.
'Cause I'm hanging with you. 'Cause I'm hanging like low fruit. I said we got it all good when he sparked the joint. Hit it up, we get to the point. She keeps passing me by, got a little hit, yeah, I think I'm high. Maybe just a little bit funny, but that's okay. Philadelphia ain't always sunny, and my eggs ain't always gonna be runny. But I got it, and I just need one-y. Hey. So I pass that to Winnie. Go ahead, take it like we doing shinny.
It's been really nice to get older. It's been really nice to grow up, but I've been thinking about weird things like maybe getting a will. The will, that means when I die, things that will go to people. And that's weird because I'm only 36, but that's part of what this is, yeah.
And if you haven't done that yet, who's the lucky recipient of all this debt? Who's ready to collect? Who's the closest relative I can get? You go and take care of that, get it wet. CRA, fuck it, run away. I don't even play envelope games. You could tell them that it envelops me, never. Hey, I ain't losing a wink of sleep. Trust it, would it be? We out on them streets. Branko, what you doing, dog? It's almost 3. I just left my second venue on my way to the 4th. I'm skipping the 3rd because I'm coming to yours.
So good.
I love it when he got so real at the end.
I've been thinking about it.
He's like, yo, I'm out here, and I don't. And then she used her thought. She's like, I don't have a will. Like, I gotta do that at some point. That's my faves.
Yeah.
But I said it in the rhyme, but I did want to like at one point get back and give you some shouts and some respect.
Yeah.
Because I've been seeing you like I was giving Evan his flowers, and I wanted to give you some too because, I mean, you've always been awesome. It's been like a blessing to know you, and you've been such a cool being that I've had the privilege of knowing. But now watching you like on your comic journey has been so cool because I see you out there and hitting the scene and trying stuff and going like, cool, that worked, that didn't, I didn't like it, and experiencing, you know, what we've been experiencing of like some nights you're like, yes, and other nights you're like, I didn't like that at all. and I have so much respect for comedy because it's such a, you know, that's on my list.
Such a grind.
And I know I've been like a bit of a coward about it. So like when I do my shows, like just like Evan, like we talk and we're kind of like, you know, not tooting horns, but we're witty and humorous.
We're funny.
people.
There's a comedic portion.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I am jealous of how effortlessly both of you are so funny on stage, and like captivating. I think myself, I'm captivating, but like there's an ease about the way that you make people laugh that I'm just like, ugh, one day maybe if I'm lucky, you know.
No, but yeah, and I appreciate that. But this is the funny thing, right? So for me, it's like there's not a pressure in a way that like I've done it all my life and it's my natural state, but also like people aren't coming there thinking that's what it's gonna be. You know, so for me there
Yeah.
not that pressure to like
Right.
make them laugh. I just happen to be, you know, I'm doing it and it's my natural state to kind of
That's right.
be in that wit, and so they don't expect it, and that's been a blessing because I hosted one comedy show. It was really funny. Like Pedro, you know, shouts to him. He passed, but he was an actor and a comic, and he used to be a bouncer at the Hideout. You know,
He was
Big
on
Pedro.
our first Bar Cathedral show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the first Rhythm of Flow. Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. man, and like shouts, like, you know,
Sweetheart.
yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of knew him, but I didn't know him because he was doing security at Hideout all the time, and when it moved, I was going to it a lot on college. And I remember, I guess I hosted a show there. Somebody put on like a concert, whatever, and I hosted it. And then one night I was there, and he was like, "Hey, man," he's like, "You know, what are you doing like this Sunday?" And I was like, "I don't know, like nothing." And he was like, "You want to host a comedy show?" And I was like, "Oh," and it was the first time I had to think about it. Any show anyone's been like, "You want to host?" I'm like, "No problem."
yeah.
And this, I was like, "Oh,"
Comedies, yeah.
because there's an expectation. And so I said to him, I was like, "Okay, just so you know, like I'm not like a comic." And he goes, "That's okay, man." He goes, "If you're not funny, we just won't laugh." I was like, "Okay." You
What
know.
a legendary thing to
Yeah.
say.
And up until that point,
That's true.
yeah, and up until that point, I had, you know, written some stuff in my phone, like ideas I'd had, like a, you know, little script bits, and I kind of went and looked through that and was like, okay, I'll use some of this. And luckily, it was like when you're hosting, you know, you kind of only have short periods, which is nice. And if you're like, it's kind of not going well, you're like, oh, and here's this.
It's not about you.
Here's this comic.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I got through that. But the respect I have is that, like, you know, we do music, and the crazy thing about music is that regardless of, like, your skill, generally, if you're out there doing it and you're not, like, you know, a POS, like, and being that person, people will give you love. Like, I go to these open mics, and I see people, some of them are, like, just starting, trying their best, and they finish a song, and people would generally, it's very rare, and I've almost never seen it, people would generally give you the courtesy of, like, clapping. Yeah. And with comedy, that doesn't happen.
It's not the case.
You say a joke, and you know right away. Like, it's either they laugh or it's silence.
It's dry as fuck.
Yeah, like, and you know, and sometimes maybe someone will be like, and try to give like a pity laugh. But generally, like, you'll know, like, you instantly know whether that product worked. And people generally won't give you the, like, again, like a courtesy laugh.
Yeah.
And that's what's, like, wild about that. Like I said, music, regardless of what level you're at, there's a sort of, like, an agreement that, like, you play, you do the thing, people clap and show you some love. And that there isn't. And that's what's wild about watching people get up there. And I've seen comics, you know, that get so excited. They're like, yeah, and how are we doing? You know, and then they go, and they tell a joke, right? And then it doesn't work. And they go, fuck, I have 10 minutes of this shit.
Yeah, you're stuck up there.
And you feel infinite. And, you know, the ones I've watched grow, like, shouts to Ryan Long. Like, he was a guy that used to play drums in the Johnstones, and that was how I met him when we were both in ska bands. And then he started doing stand-up and hitting it.
right on.
And he was a person I watched, like, say a joke, and if it didn't land, he goes, well, that sucked. Okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know.
Just
I'll take
move
it out of
on.
the set.
That's what you
know,
got to do,
and
yeah.
figuring out how, because I've seen people just fall apart as like human beings. They just go, and they start to question everything, and then they're like fumbling, delivering, going, wait, what was the punchline?
That's
or whatever. But either way, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's not my realm. But I do want to, ask you like what made you want to get into that, and like what has that like journey been like? Because it's like I said, I have so much respect for it.
Yeah, it's so fun. I think the pandemic also, because I started before the pandemic, but I quit. And then the pandemic, I just like really got to also quiet down and be like, oh, what do I want and what do I feel and all of those things, and have that dialogue really kind of take first place for the first time. And it just was like, I want to make people laugh. And whether that's like through film and television or other type of performance or stand-up, like I think that's kind of my guiding light right now, which is cool because it's not necessarily one lane, but it's kind of one intention. And I feel like I've always been good at playing lighter, fun characters. And I feel like that could just be really like be a wonderful lane for me. And like my own content that I'm consuming right now is like comedy and fun and light. And so I enjoy that type of entertainment and want to put that out into the world. And I love live performance, man. I came up in musical theater and theater. So yeah, that was my first love before film and television. So, and comedy is just has been a way for me to express a lot of shame. A lot of shame that I held, which is like such a fucking cliche. Oh my God.
Yeah, but music is that too.
Yeah.
It helps, man. It heals.
Yeah, it just has been like everything that I thought was bad or whatever, or hold beliefs around. It's like, let me throw that in front of an audience and prove to myself that it's not really that bad. And that, like,
straight up,
your desires and wants and needs and things that you're going through is probably really familiar to a lot of people. See if that's true.
Yeah.
It is funny though. I just had my first moment recently where I had one of my jokes work just consistently. It was just, I was like, finally, I got something in my back pocket that I can pull out if I really need it. And then you start to plan for the laughter, which I had not really ever done before, because I proved it to myself over and over. And then that one time that it doesn't work and you plan for that laughter and you don't get it, that was a wild, humbling experience. I think now that I've had that experience, and it was like, whoa, I don't know where to go from here. It was like, oh yeah, you can always fall.
Yeah.
Like there's never, you're not getting out of, you're not, like
you're never immune to.
Thank you. You're not immune to falling flat on your face.
Always
and
be
there's
humble.
something really wonderful about that too.
Yeah.
I think like, I just want to keep learning as I get older and make that priority.
Yeah, which is so beautiful. And that is like, like Ev said, like you got to stay humble, that's important, because I don't know, it's so weird to me to be cocky. It's okay to like understand that what you're doing is good and have confidence in that. Like I have people come up to me and like bless them, and I'm not saying this stuff, but they come, I'm sure, to him and you after some shows and go like, man, that was great, like fuck, you're awesome, and like I love what you do, and that's a blessing. But it's like I'm never like, yeah, I'm the shit, because it's like, no, like one, there's people that in some facets are infinitely better than me, even though I'm doing me. And also just like, why would you ever be like that? Like to be like, I'm the best. It's like, what does that mean? One, it's not a competition. Two, you're not, because there's probably somebody that's better. And even that's like a construct of kind of like competition, and probably not to get into it, but capitalism, So it just doesn't make sense.
I think if you're saying I'm the best as like a fan of yourself, like it depends on where I feel like the underlying intentions are.
Yeah.
Like, are you the best because you're compensating for something? Are you the best because you really like enjoy what you do and you enjoy when other people do it too. I think that's where
Yeah.
it's like, can you appreciate the craft like in fighting or something?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they're going to be like, I'm the fucking best.
Yeah, it's kind of
But they
like
can
part of the
also-
MC armor.
They can
kinda.
also appreciate though the art of the craft
Totally.
Yeah, for
when
sure.
they see it in someone else, right?
Like I said, it's that balance between like confidence and cockiness.
Yeah.
It's okay to be confident. Like I know that I'm good at what I do, and I know that like I can perform, and I have, I put in the work. I know that's a good thing. I have confidence in that. But I'm not like, yeah, I'm the shit. Like
It
there's
feels
this,
like cockiness has to have someone else be lower or bad at something in order for that intention to exist.
So here's where I come with this funniness, because obviously you're gonna be like, of course the capitalist rapper wants to be like the best, but you're right. It's not about the competition. Here's what I learned. When I get those like lyrical bro blowjobs from bros after shows too, who are just like, "You're amazing," and I'm like, "Thank you," and it's like, if my wife allowed and you were a woman, I'd let you suck it. I'm just kidding. I'm crazy boy. I'm a crazy boy.
Shit.
I just blasted into that. So yeah, exactly. No, but here's the thing. I used to try and pull, that's it. I used to try and pull back the curtain for them, right? And be like, dude, I'm basically teach you how to do this in 5 minutes. Like when we like way back when, like a decade ago. Then I realized that like people don't want the curtain pulled back. And that like it has a lot to do with actually like if I have a paid client, I'm fully just like, yeah, no, I'm a genius. Like I'm probably like the best in the world, like in the handful of best of the world. And, I would let them feel like they're receiving that value, like they bought a Lamborghini, like it's more about providing a service, having people think I'm going to give them one of the best shows available. So and I'm like, yeah, that is actually quite capitalist. Just thinking of like a marketplace, like I just want to be confident behind the product that it is at least one of the, and you could rock this too, is like, it is definitely one of the top most unique experiences of a show. Like, I don't know if you want to measure like bar for bar, me and Kendrick in a cypher, rap-wise, 50-50. And that's my confidence, right? So I'm going, great, but like, I truly think that the Branko freestyle show or the Ellevan freestyle show, or even the Marco Bellier freestyle or Harry Mack freestyle show are all going to be different.
Yeah.
And I just think like if we're all super confident that like that's the best version of that show we can provide, I love that. Like I'll sell the bananas, and I'll just make sure they're the best bananas. Like in that, like that sort of, I guess it's kind of pride, like taking pride in your work, meaning that performance is your work, but removing yourself from that.
Yeah.
Like knowing that like I'm really good when I'm on the mic, and then like not carrying that with your ego into the rest of your life and thinking that you're better by anyone as a person by any means,
Yeah, I guess if there's entitlement for being the best.
Yeah, you don't
it's
really
like,
deserve anything more because of it, other than
Why?
your paycheck that you've agreed on, or your rate, right, or the love you get from people. But like, it's okay. I think it's good to state a fact of being like, I am something. We all got to be kind of the best at something. I feel, I don't know.
No, you can be that, but see, it's interesting. You started it at that place, but then also you kept using the word confidence.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. There is a difference.
Yeah.
You can be confident and say, listen, like I've put in hours, which you have, like, and go, I'm really good at what I do. But not be like, yeah, I'm fucking shit. You're lucky to have me. Like she said, like a sense of entitlement, and that's the turn off.
Yeah, that's a
and
turn
people
off
that
for
are
sure.
Like, think they're the shit. It's also been interesting for me because on the other flip of like coming in humble, then when you deliver the product, people go like shit because they didn't see it coming. And there's something to both. If you say this is what it is, then you have to live up to that, and that can be cool to put that fire under you for sure. Like when I was doing shows in my underwear, I mean, that's another funny thing that I was gonna say before about Mark Ribier. Like I remember seeing him, and all these people at first were like, "Yo, dude, this guy reminds me of you."
know he really does remind me of you.
And I went,
sometimes.
Well, I feel like I'm like in between him and Harry Mack.
I agree.
Like he's way more musically like.
He actually got the keys. He's like if you mixed Rob Christian in with one of us.
Yeah, yeah, he's like nutty, and he's sort of, musically is infinitely more talented than me, and is like a wild like performer.
And he looks wild.
Yeah, And then like he has that kind of show,
More.
and then Harry Mack like is infinitely like technically more proficient than me. So I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Where I put on a show a lot of times that's more similar to like Ribier than Mac, but I have the sort of lyricism closer to Mac than like Ribier, and it's wild. But watching him, like I came to I think his first show ever in Toronto, and it was at some like random club on King Street. Like somebody had told me about him, and then like somebody sent me on Instagram was like, this guy reminds you of you, and I looked and he was like there, and I went to see it. And it was literally like there was a club night going on with like a DJ and people were just hanging, and then they cleared like a little space for him, and he at one point got up and like did his show, and it was like him and his mixed looper and all that, but like on that, like now seeing him at festivals is crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember like and he was doing it all in his clothes. And now, I was for years, like I've done my show in my underwear. And then like one day, like I hopped on Insta or something, and I looked and I was like, what the? Because people started sending me going, yo, this guy's doing your thing. And it's not like my thing. Chili Peppers did it too. But literally watching him, and then now he does all his shows in his underwear.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Bro,
this
it's
is
a thing, it's a
weird
vibe.
thing to watch.
It's actually so cathartic for me to hear that you had that experience with Mark Rebillier. I get it sometimes.
Rebillier.
Sorry,
No, it's all good.
Mark. I get it sometimes with Mark, but people send me Harry Mack a lot, and I'm just like, I know, to the point where I've actually used Harry Mack hashtags in my videos to sort of steal some of his audience because it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and it's a
Shout out Harry Mack, man. I see you doing
Yeah.
your thing. Cheers. I feel like we should start a freestyler union.
Yeah, man, it's out there.
Connect an agency of people who can provide this unique skill. I think it's like a very future way of thinking about entertainment being more and more custom.
Yeah.
Things in general, products in general are becoming more niche, and having this form of entertainment it is a special type of light.
Yeah.
It's something unique that because it will never be done. Not only even if you have a song like U2, like every U2 concert was different. It's always going to be different every night.
Yeah.
But literally the songs are a reflection of things that were really in that present moment that came together in the universe's divine timing in that night. And I love being a voice for that.
Yeah.
And the more we practice our rhymes or whatever, the more we sharpen our instrument for when we receive and we can reflect.
Yeah.
And that's just the role of an artist in society, man. Like, you're really out here just being an artist in today's time.
Yeah, and it's a wild ride. Like, I've had so much gratitude for that, and I tell people that all the time, especially now. I go like, we're gonna create a moment, and it's gonna happen now. It's never gonna happen again. I go, we're never gonna have the same people in the
I
same
think
room.
it's
the
good to
same
mention
energy.
that with audiences, just because I think can be lost on people
Yeah.
sometimes. And if you let yourself be immersed in the presence of all of it, like the energy is really next level.
Yeah. No, it's wild. I think a lot of people catch on, but Ev's probably got this too over time. Like, sometimes I'd get off stage and people go like, hey, man, that was great. But they go, somebody would inevitably come up and go, because I would take suggestions just like he did about what to make songs about. I like doing that because it gives my mind like a place to go, a destination, and I can focus. Because when we were doing this, like, I can rhyme about random stuff, but sometimes I get lost and like, where am I going?
Yeah.
But either way, but somebody would inevitably come up and be like, cool, man, but like most of that was written, right? Like you kind of like had that, and then
That's the
you
best
sort of
compliment.
punched it. Yeah, no, 100%. Like punched in our suggestions, and I'd be like, no, man, like that was all 100%, and it is the best compliment. But excuse me, living in that moment is the coolest thing. Like, it's bittersweet because sometimes something happens, I go, man, I wish I had that captured. But I also love that it disappears into the
Yeah.
ether,
Infiniteness.
because
Yes.
that helped me, because like I said before, I have trouble with this sort of, having something like why I haven't really written songs, put them out. I have trouble with something like existing in that way. Whereas this is like it goes and it's gone. And there's still like, there still can be the critique, but I don't have time to think about it in
Right.
that moment. You can't overthink. But so I love, like those moments. And just some people going, oh man, like I did a shout outs to Corey Hotline. They're a wicked like band, and they do covers as well, and they play at the Wheat Sheaf every Wednesday.
Nice.
And I was going to see them, and my buddy Ben, who I went to high school with, shout out Ben Miller, like wicked bass player, he was playing, and they brought me up. They're like, "You want to come up with this?" And I did. And I did a song with them, I don't often come up with choruses, but I did, and it was like, "How do you like your salad tossed?" was like kind of the meat of the chorus.
The meat.
Yeah.
The salad.
Very topical right now, the
Yeah.
tossing of the salad.
Apparently,
Right.
everyone likes to eat ass now.
Seems to be the thing. I mean, it's a fucking good ass ride. So fucking, I'm glad people are catching on. You know. But I was out later at Drum. Shout out to Drum. We're doing so many shouts, and I love it because this city's full of worthiness for all of that.
World-class city.
Drum Taberna is like one of my favorite places, man. They're a little pirate ship in this crazy fucking city of capitalist vultures. Like they're fighting the good fight, man, and they're promoting culture. But I was out there, and this guy came up, and he's like, "Yo, man," he goes, "We saw your wheat sheaf, man. How do you like your salad?" And and he's saying it back to me.
Hey,
And I was-
that's the best feeling.
and I was like, "That's crazy." And sometimes people would come up and go, "I remember when you did this song," and like you said, it's very custom. Like it's like
It's
whoever
for that moment.
was there. Maybe you'll film it and people will watch, and that's cool too. But whoever was in that room got that like palpable energy. And
They have it with them for the rest of their life. I
Yeah.
was booked at a resort called Hedonism.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about
Yeah.
that. Sounds so fun.
And I made a song in my thong. Shout out DJ Sereno, at the naked pool that had a swim up bar. About this one guy who everybody loves because he's such a sweet character, but everyone has this thing of saying like "fuck you, Gary," because his like beautiful wife allows him to go to this swingers resort. And he's like, "You have such a good life." It's like, "Fuck you, Gary." So I made this song called "Fuck Gary," and it lives on in this like pocket of like loving swinger culture that came to
like
that
100
resort.
people probably.
Well, like,
just
and
like
people, they have it on a plaque at the wall at the resort. Like they had, like people painted it all over their booties for the next party night. Like they have
Yeah.
pictures of that, and it's like, you're right. Like we simply get to take a snapshot of a moment for it.
Yeah.
It's not even about us. That's what's so fun. These songs, they're about salads or like fuck it, like you know what I mean. Like and like everything lands perfectly for the audience and us at the same time. That it's just like. You got to thank again the universe, like something more divine is at play.
And it gives other people permission also afterwards. Like, no one's talking about tossing salads and eating ass, but then afterwards,
They can.
they leave and they're like, "Oh, that was so funny about the ass eating. Do you guys
like eating
do
ass?
that,
Did you
or
like eating ass?
Open.
you're opening conversation and creating like an easier gateway to maybe uncomfortable things for people.
For sure.
It's not always easy to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
No, and giving people permission. I mean, you touched on a really amazing thing, even as like someone that throws events and MCs. Like part of it is that even
It's permission.
at dance parties, sometimes I'd be like, "Hey, man, get on the floor." You can because people go like they know what they're there for a lot of times, but they still need like
They need to be
the
reminded.
permission. And it's funny that you said that because I have. Maybe you see this. I carry riding crops on me.
It's little kinky vibes of Branko.
Well,
in
it's
the-
really funny.
I love how many things you have on you.
all of them. So somebody came up. Someone said this is for horses and this
Yeah,
is for
that one's for
unicorns.
horses.
And I wish I came up with that line. 'Cause goddamn. But the funny thing is, the reason I got this is the second one. But the reason I got
We've been looking for a unicorn for a while.
right. The reason I got this one originally, I just randomly, and it's not this exact one. I had one before, but exactly like it. I saw it on like Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, "That's kind of funny." And I naively didn't even think about the kink factor. I literally got it because people constantly, like when you wear a coat like this, people constantly touch me, pet me, like get in my space. And it's been happening for years, and I don't really care. Sometimes people are like, "Dude, I've been petting you for like 10 minutes and you didn't even turn around." And I'm like, if I turned around every time somebody touched me, like, I'd have broken neck. But I bought it half as a joke to just be like, if somebody touches me without my permission, I don't feel like it, to be like, no.
Yeah.
And the funny story, and like the only person, I've done it to only a couple people, and one of them was Chaos. Because I was at the Bovine Sex Club, shouts to Bovine, one night, and I was literally walking by, and he like reached out and like pet my coat, and I just turned around and whipped this out, and I was like, no, and I smacked Chaos.
Holy fuck!
And like I said, I didn't used to really really like care. And more recently, I've had these moments where I'm like, some days I don't feel like it. And so-
Trying to touch a
Yeah.
coat, but he smacks my hand. Trying to catch a coat, but he smacks my hand.
and
That's funny.
and that's a crop on your butt, kid. And that was, and that's been an interesting journey too, because some nights like
Bet.
someone will reach out and like, pat me, and then sometimes I go like, please don't touch me, like, or I go, please don't touch me without asking, and that's
Yeah.
been a funny journey because sometimes people go, oh, okay, like some people,
They get offended.
Yeah, some people are reasonable and go, oh shit, you're right, I'm sorry, like, they were almost like in a trance, just going like, you're not real.
Because you're a vibe, too.
You're
You walk in
beautiful.
like a mirage.
Yeah, and people are like, you're not real. And then they go, oh, and some people go, oh, I'm really sorry. You're like totally right. And other people go like, okay, man, like relax. And you're going like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Like
a crazy
reached
reaction.
out and physically like got in my space and touched me, and you're trying to be like, tell me. And I'm like, and I say to them, I'm like, listen, man, just because you don't have boundaries, like, you're getting mad at me because I have boundaries and you don't, and that they really get mad about that stuff.
People think
But-
that we're like a product, too. Like, it's like I do interesting, weird things, and like it's like people will just like record me or something, or just like treat and like, yeah.
I
and then
mean,
I'm like,
that's
you
a
should see
classic.
my-
Like, I don't want to take
see my
responsibility for
friends.
my overstepping,
No, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I overstepped. Someone asked me not to, and I'm like, oh no, I'm right.
They're just
Like,
reacting.
No,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean, and I've seen that, and that's why I'm okay with it, even though it's still like
But it is funny.
annoying. But I go like, this is so wild, and even just like when I used to throw parties in my underwear, like I would feel, and I like the attention because I am who I am, and we're sexual people. But like I would like, girls would like, pinch my ass, grab my ass, like snap my underwear.
They ever grab
And
your dick?
I didn't. It was rare, but it probably happened.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
here and there. But it was like wow, because like again, part of me is like, oh, okay, girls grab my butt, like.
Yeah.
But it's just like all of them are like, oh, this is okay.
Yeah, well, that's what was wild is sometimes like having that, and I would turn around and someone go, well, I mean, look, come on, like you're kind of asking for it, and I was like, that is insane, you know. And
Yeah.
again, and I'm not one of those like, woe is me, like the plight of women and the experience of women is crazy, and never gonna even like
But that's
pretend to.
literally though
We're gonna
what
do one more
what
freestyle and close
happens.
it.
That is the thing, and that's why it was crazy hearing that from women, having them go like, and I go, what would happen to me if I said to women? Some of them would be like, yeah, I guess so again, and some of
Yeah.
them would be like, whatever, dude. And it was, probably just that they had put up with that shit so much that
For
they're
sure.
like, oh, here's
Trying to take
like,
their power back in the way that they had it taken away from them, though, which
For
is so
sure.
classic.
yeah, and it is what it is, and I've said that, and it's, it is. But it's funny, before we got down that rabbit hole, part of what I was talking about with this is I didn't think about the kink factor, like it was just a joke. But
Didn't
when
think
it
about the
comes
kink.
out, people are like, oh.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
they go, oh,
It's
I have one of those at home, or I have a bigger one, and it has allowed people to kind of, like you said, just like the toss salad thing, like talk about their kink.
Talk about the kink, dog. What you really think, dog? Are they gonna grab that dick and just, oh, it's hard. Oh, wow, cool. Grab me in the party. How's it going, man? I'm shaking all up on your shorty. One time I was doing that gig I was talking about, and when he wasn't there yet, and when I was dropping down and hopping out down from the stage, and this wife comes up to me and grabs me by the way, and I looked at her husband in the face like, dog, what you doing? What you really finna say? And she was drunk. She is fucked up, and I'm like, let go. All right, what would happen if I did that to you, though? And she was like, go for it. And I was like, no. And she was like, do it. And I was like, I'm good. And then we moved on, and I went and got some food, and I went and smoked some weed. Then when he came and we had sex later on that day, and that's really fun, man. Life is so great, dog. I don't give a fuck. We be playing in the waves and the places that life will take us all along the way.
Hedonism, baby, this world's kinda crazy. Smoke till I am hazy, sit down 'cause I'm lazy. Hedonism, baby, this world's kinda crazy. Smoke till I am hazy, sit down 'cause I'm lazy. It's a wild world. And a mission, said we gotta get it, everybody want permission. Trying to do it right, but they need that yes. And if you don't get that, then just reflect. Sit back, relax, and say, if you gotta do it like back in the day, somebody touch me and I say please don't, and if they start to bug, I'm like, yo, that's you though. Damn, you don't have boundaries, so you're trying to get out here and flounder me. Floating and you just project. There's a way that we could both simply connect, but give respect. RESPECT. Like Franklin said, it's on me. But I still got that crop, and if they hit me, then I hit them and I let it drop. Damn. But it's not what you think. And when I whip it out, people talk about their kink. They say, man, I'm into that. You could spank this ass. Somebody never would if I didn't pass.
Talk about your king. 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 You don't need to think. Just tell him what your kink is, and we can get freaky. And then I'll go down and you're gonna speak in tongues because it's so magical. And I will do it for you because I adore you. Talk about your king. Talk about your king. Talk about your king.
Talk about it, talk about it, talk about your king. Talk about your king, talk about your king. That's my kink, yep, getting the dick sucked. And I'm just playing games all the time like Flip Cup, and that's what's up. Yeah, walk in a room and flip around like a helicopter. I go hella hard, and you know mozzarella cheesy never pulled it together. You know I'm more than 10, now I'm going 11. You know it's more than friends, and I'm going in deep like the Ellevan ocean. You flowing with me, and you can hopefully see the way the journey can be. Yeah, a couple artists popping out right out of the tee. It'll be free flow, but we don't do it for free. We going DJ, book my man B and a B. Always a party, we going hella hardy and hardy. You bring the heart of an artist to everywhere you partaking, never departing, but no, you take your part in every place that keeps it keep going with a thump heart. Yeah, double pump, cause you know that flow that you giving always haunts people afterwards, and they think about those rapping words you gon' give them, tell them how it be and have your
Get it high like the southern weather, baby. The wetter the better, baby. The wetter the better, baby. Yeah, so I've been pressing on it, man, I'm holding those hips. Then I go down, baby, and I kiss those lips. You know where I'm headed. If I got the 2 fingers in, turn them sideways and spread it. Damn. Trying to get that hit. I say a flick of beam, baby, when I hit that clit. Damn. Trying to vibrate. Said I got it all good and my mind is great. Hey. So I've been speaking in tongues, hit it on the bottom and she got her ass sprung. Spine go in an arch. I said, baby girl, this is just the start. So in with 2, like I'm giving a test. Said I got it all good and I'm feeling blessed. Then I hit the 3, then I hit the 4, then she hit the floor, then she asked for more. So we down on all, like that doggy, like I was Ralph and I'm doing it all. Me? Hitting that hottie. Said I love it all, man, the kink is naughty.
Talk about your king. Talk about your king. Talk about your king.
Talk about your king. Talk about your king. Talk about your king. What a demonstration of the oral fixation. That was amazing. And the station with the meditation and the entertainment, which you're saying, this has been amazing. Bless you, and everywhere we want to take it.
That was awesome.
It's done.
Come on, baby!
That's
I
the
love you,
perfect
bro.
ending.
That's it. But this is my favorite thing because in any cipher, it's not about, it's what we're talking about, the best thing, whatever. It's not about who's doing what. Everybody has a line, and in all of it, you said, I'm gonna go down and you'll be speaking in tongues. And my mind went, you're the winner today. Like, that's the line.
1000%.
Because the duality of, like, you're using your tongue, obviously, and then she's gonna be so, like, that she can't, she's gonna be
And
possessed.
she's speaking in tongues.
In tongues.
Yeah, and that was like, I feel like you were solving a rhyme riddle.
I was
And
in that moment.
but you
Yeah.
trusted that you would
Trusted
find the
it.
rhyme.
Yeah.
And I agree that because that changed the whole perspective too.
And that was the line. And like I said, I've been in these
Thanks,
scenarios.
fellas.
Yeah, and it's not about, like, again, who's the best. Like, I remember doing a cipher, shout out to my buddy Kit, and, like, him and I had both freestyled, and we were, like, you know, we had done that a lot, and our buddy Mike was there, and he's not a freestyler. And we were going for a while, him and I both. And Mike comes in, and he's saying some stuff, and the only line I remember from that whole cipher, I don't remember anything I said, anything Kit said. Mike said, I brandish a pistol, hairline like Billy Crystal.
Oh
You know?
my
And
gosh.
he has his receding hairline. Shout out to Mike Poscancer. He's in a band called The Treasures, and he's got a solo project. But he said, and that's the only line I remember. That was years ago.
I'm gonna steal that for sure.
And Kit and I are freestylers, and Mike's a brilliant songwriter. But he said that line, and I was like,
It just hits you.
I was like, you're the winner.
Yeah.
Like you want. It doesn't matter how many years we put in. It's not about being the best. And
Ciphers are made by memorable
Yeah.
lines for sure.
And you said the talk in tongues, and that was it. Winnie's the winner
Thank
today.
you.
I
I'm
agree.
the winner. You're the winner.
Yeah.
We're the winners.
Yeah.
Facts.
Is there anything you want to leave the people with?
Just peace and love and gratitude, man. Like have gratitude for what you have. It will get you through all the times. You know, the downs are lessons and lessons are blessings, man. And thank
Fuck
you
yeah.
guys for having me, man. Like I've been wanting to do this forever, and it's such a treat. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you
thanks
guys
for
holding
coming.
space, and thanks for shining your light, man.
Yeah,
love
brother.
it.
Thank
Love it. And if nobody told you today, I love you.
Love you, brother.
love
Thank
you.
you, man. Oh, that's so nice. Follow Branko, subscribe. Oh, my heart's full.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to Disciplined Stoners, the gateway drug to mindfulness.
Look deeper.
To think that we started this podcast to fight a stigma,
Look deeper.
only to uncover so much love that we realized that you can't put your energy anywhere but what you want.
Look deeper.
And what we want is authentic conversation. What we want is quality medicine. What we enjoy is each other.
We get to learn from our guests. Manage the best. I would manifest this.
Part of the magic of the plant is how it uncovers what you've been hiding away.
So much love.
Look deeper. Feel more. Tune in.
So much love.
Look deeper.
We're not here to be lazy.
Welcome to Disciplined Stoners,
We're not here to distract ourselves.
the gateway drug to mindfulness.
We're here to learn. We're here to grow.